Welcome on into the Stroke Limit Reach podcast. I am your host, Nick, here with my co-host, Mike. And Mike, we got a special guest on today. Why don't you introduce him to the crowd?
Yeah, all right. What's up, Shadley? Go ahead and tell the crowd a little bit about yourself, who your teams are, where your allegiances lie, and what biases we expect from you.
All righty. Yeah, so, name's Derek. I know Mikey through the Army. I was his dad for about a year. It was pretty nice.
True. He was Pops.
Yep. My teams, right, I am all maize and blue. I bleed maize and blue, and I have since birth. Absolutely hate that team down south, so expect a lot of shit talking there. And then, just kind of here loving Big Ten football.
Sir, and you're also just Detroit everything, right? Lions, Tigers, Pistons.
Oh, absolutely. Lions. Hey, now, I think it's absolute shit that we didn't get the first round draft pick, but that's just me.
Let's touch on that real quick.
Man.
Let's touch on that real quick because I have a question for you guys since you guys are more NBA driven than I am. Do you guys like the lottery system?
I like it if it was done properly, but I feel like it's one of the most fixed things in the fucking world.
Like, why not raffle off, like, maybe only like the bottom four? Like, I don't understand how it's fair. I understand the percentage breakdown, but, like, the chance that you could be a great team and still get the first pick is pretty wild. And not to mention, it seems like a system that is easily manipulated.
Yeah, that's my issue with it, is I think it is heavily manipulated. Like, it's almost like you know who's getting pick one before
Like,
the draft ever even starts.
I understand it, takes away people just tanking like the NFL. But I don't know. I was curious from NBA fans to see how that goes because I'm kind of like, sometimes I think the lower teams can give fuck.
Yeah, it's like I don't love or hate it. But, I mean, yeah, if you're in a play-in game, you should not have a percentage.
Yeah, I agree. There should be a cutoff of top level.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, another thing, like, the Hawks, what was it? Or no, the Wizards won one more game than we did, and they had a pick that was, like, 9 spots better than us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like,
So
of course we're going to get better.
Do they pull numbers for teams the entire, like, first round? Or is it, like, for example, do they pick, like, the first team in the lottery, the second team with the second pick?
They start at 15, and they go down from there.
Okay, so after 15, it's all, like, where you placed?
Yeah.
Oh, so 15's a lot, though.
And then,
It's half the teams.
yeah. And then with that, I mean, all the trades, I mean, it pretty much doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, OKC, I think, has like 4 picks in the first round next year.
That's wild. Okay. Enough of the NBA. Let's get into the Big Ten. Let's just go right in, and let's start off with the contenders, Ohio State. And contenders, I don't know if they're the champions or, they could be pretenders. But ultimately, this is Ryan Day's year. I think this is one of the best teams they've had in a while. That being said, with it being one of the best teams they've had in a while, probably outside of the quarterback position, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. He can say Ohio State versus the world all he wants to his fan base, but every football and non-football fan in the world knows who Ohio State is. That being said, with the amount of talent they have, they can't continue to get beat and not produce championships and to continuously now get beat down by Michigan. That being said, I am on their high end for their floor, Mike. And personally, I think they go regular season ceiling rather, is 12-0. Not saying that they go 12-0 for the ceiling. I'm just saying that is the highest possible, results they could get. They obviously could run through the schedule, the big one being week 6 at Oregon. Definitely winnable game. I know, Mike, me and you talked about it, probably on the podcast too, that we personally believe no matter if Oregon or Ohio State wins, that it's not going to be a sweep, meaning that we think both those teams could make the conference championship. And if that's the case, we don't think they complete the sweep and go 2-0 against each other. So that's the game that's got me held up because I think Oregon's got a good team. But what do you think, ceiling, Mike?
I have their ceiling at 11-1 just because Ryan Day is going to Ryan Day. He's a career underperformer. He's going to drop a game. And I have that game being like at Oregon is going to be the toughest game of his schedule. If he drops that, I could totally see another game being dropped somewhere. Like, they don't have the easiest schedule, which is a shock. Ohio State usually has the easiest sweep. But I guess the conference did get a little bit harder. I mean, versus Iowa, I think Iowa has a contention possibility. Me and Derek were talking a little bit about it yesterday. At Penn State, even though I know Penn State's offense is going to be dog water this year,
Still, yeah.
it's
the
at Penn
environment.
State. That's going to be their whiteout game. And then versus Michigan is never going to be an easy game, especially with Michigan owning them recently in this fucking series.
It is at home for Ohio State, though, which is a good thing. I know that
Yeah.
it hasn't, the last 2 games, but, didn't work out for them when they were at home and got beat down. But I agree. Those are the 3 games, the Week 6 game at Oregon and the, would that be Week 8 game at Penn State is going to kind of determine, I think, Ryan Day's future. I don't think he can afford to drop both. I think he can afford to drop one and still make the conference championship. That's with beating Michigan at the end of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I personally have Week 4 at Michigan State
I'm not
being
worried.
his Ohio State versus the world moment.
I'm not worried. I honest to God, Michigan State is in such a bad fucking spot.
Oh, they're terrible. But I feel like that's going to be a stupid close game. They're going to come away at the very end, and Ryan Day is going to have his where the fuck is Lou Holzer or whatever his fucking name is.
But Notre Dame was a good team last year. I mean, you forget that. They had talent. Michigan State doesn't really have anybody.
I know that. But Ryan Day is going to fucking hype himself up. Derek, how about you come on and
I mean, personally,
give us your rant?
Yeah, before I turn it over, because you can, for one, I'm just going to go ahead and let you know, you can jump in whenever you want. Cut us off. This is how this podcast goes. We're not official at all. We're just 3 guys sitting on the couch shooting the shit. So before I turn it over, though, unless you want to cut me off, I think that the Iowa game is a lot more interesting than the Michigan
Oh,
State game.
I do too.
Because you have that run.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, you have a run of Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, who, so in my opinion, if you think about it, on paper, Iowa, Oregon, and Nebraska are probably all top 15 defenses in the country.
Yeah.
So it's like an interesting stretch. And then you put Penn State in there who has a good defense.
So I only said Michigan State because that's his first, that's going to be his away game before that stretch. I don't see him doing this whole Iowa or Ohio State versus the world at
Well, it's
home.
going to be the Iowa game.
But he's not going to do that at home.
You think it's Oregon then?
He's going to make it dramatic, and it's going to be an away game. If he beats Oregon, that's exactly it. But I don't
Well,
want to
yeah,
give
I mean,
Ryan Day enough credit to beat Oregon.
Low key, that'd
I don't
probably
know, though,
be his
because,
best
like,
one.
At the same time, I mean, I see Iowa as almost an early season trap game
Oh,
because
100%.
you've got,
Oh, yeah.
you're at Michigan State, and then 2 weeks later you're in Eugene, Oregon,
Yep. It's
and then
sandwiched.
you're like, oh well, I got Iowa in the middle. Their offense is lackluster, so we should be fine. And then, Ohio State's offensive line concerns me still. As in, they didn't make many improvements on the offensive line from what I saw, at least in the research I did. But
Mhm.
we have owned their offensive line for the last 3 years, and if you're not improving on that, I mean, we see it with the Lions. You build from the inside out. You build lines, and in Ohio State's all about speed at wide receiver.
Yeah.
That was going to be the thing I say is their offense, honestly, through and through concerns me. Outside of their running back room, I think their running back room is probably best in the country because they got Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, who I think is overrated, but he's still a great running back,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really
especially if
matter
he's your
now,
number
though.
2.
You're about to say, if Quinshon is there, Travion can do what he did last year, and it won't matter.
Yeah, because Travion's a one-cut guy. He's going to find his hole, and he's going to hit that hole 100 miles per hour. Not going to break any tackles, but he's going to hit that hole fast.
I'm honestly curious too, because I know you're going with this. You're talking about the receivers. Now they always recruit, so you don't know what no-name
They have the
guy's
true
gonna break
freshman,
out.
but I'm not going to put all my fucking marbles on Jeremiah Smith being a true freshman, being a dog for him.
To go with you though, because they have
Right,
two
and
good backs, I wonder if they, because Travion, one-cut guy, more of your inside zone, one cut and go.
He's big on screens as well, but they kind of went away from that.
I wonder if Quinshon sees some time split out as a slot guy, just because he's too good not to be on the field every play.
Yeah.
So
I don't know,
curious
their offense as a whole just concerns me. I don't see them competing with teams like Oregon unless their defense just shuts them down. And even then, I think their D-line is heavily overrated. JT Tuimoloau or whatever is living off his one game against Penn State, and I don't think he's a top edge rusher in the country.
I mean, I'm not going to give you my week 6 prediction until we get through the first 5 weeks so I can see what's going on. But I'm just telling you right now, I know you slander them because you hate Ohio State, but and you're worried about some positions of their offense, but this is a really good team.
Oh, through and through, it is a good team. Yeah, it's definitely a top 5 team in the country.
If you're an Ohio State hater, you don't want to see them week 5 just fucking beat the brakes of Iowa. Because then you're like, okay, their offense is a lot better than we thought. They just tore up a top 10 defense, and now they go on the road. I personally don't see that happening because, like Shadley said, you've got Oregon the next week, so they're definitely going to be looking ahead. The coach's never going to tell you that, but you know it. We played football. Yeah. Iowa's a good team, but Oregon is a career-setting game. Yeah, it's a career-setting game for Ryan Day to win on the road.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead, Derek. I know you haven't given us your ceiling and floors yet for them.
Oh, yep. So my ceiling for no SU is 11-1. I do think they're going to drop one of the 3 games, whether it be Iowa, Oregon, or against Michigan.
You think at Penn State's a lock?
I'm not sure if it's a lock, but those are the 3 games I would be more concerned about as an Ohio State fan rather than at Penn State. At Penn State scares me, which brings me to my floor. I have their floor, all hell breaks loose type thing at 8-4.
Okay, yeah, I have them at 9-3.
So I have their floor at 10-2, just because Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan. So those 4 games, I don't see a world where they lose more than 2 of those. But that being said, if they go 10-2 and he doesn't make the conference championship and misses the playoff, he'll get fired.
Here's my thing. No secret for anyone, Ryan Day's seed is on fire right now. Mm-hmm. If this season doesn't go perfectly for him, he's out of there.
I feel for the guy, though, personally, just because his record is the best in college football right now. Now, I get he has all the talent to win championships, and he hasn't proved that he can win the big game. But, this is the way I look back at it. They are realistically a field goal away from not even talking about being him on the hot seat by making the field goal against Georgia, and he wins a natty because they would have went on to steamroll TCU.
Yeah, if they make that field goal, which also on him, he should have been more aggressive on the final drive of the fucking game and not relied it to a young college kicker to make a 45-yarder.
There wasn't that much time
at New Year's. He had a minute and a half, and he wasn't running shit downfield.
It's a championship game. I don't know. You put your kicker in position to make the field goal. You didn't expect him to fucking put the world's biggest hook on there. It looks like your golf game.
Put this kicker who isn't even a big name himself, with the biggest kick of his fucking life, as the clock strikes midnight on New Year's Eve to kick a game winner to take you to the fucking natty. There's no situation where that motherfucker wins.
But then again, though, if you're Ryan Day and I come up to you before the game and go, hey, how would you like against Georgia, who at this point seems like the best team, one of the best teams ever. If I told you before the game, hey, you're going to have a field goal to win it from 52 yards, would you take it? He would be 100% yes. So that's my point. I don't give a shit if you're a freshman kicker or not. You're a college kicker playing at Ohio State. You better be able to fucking make it. Not saying that you can't miss, because you can miss, but you can't miss like that. That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't egregious.
That was the second one of the night, too.
But back to what I was...
Cody Parkey. Embarrassing.
Yeah.
Which is funny, too, because he played for Auburn, and he was great. And then, did you ever hear the story behind that? About him, all the doinks? So that was never a problem when he played at Auburn. Now, when he went to the NFL, he practiced in the offseason to get so accurate with kicking that he was aiming for the goalpost, and he was hitting them, okay? So a sports psychologist got on ESPN one day and was like, his honest thought is because the kid's a great kicker, is that his conscious thinking about when he's lining up his field goal is that hitting the upright. And that's why he does it so much, because he practices it every day. And I'm like, dude, this guy might be onto something.
That's
Yeah,
too fucking
that's
funny.
funny as shit. But I was going to say, so Ryan Day's seed is on fire right now. What happens if he drops 2 in a row to Iowa and Oregon? Is he fired on the spot,
no,
or does he carry out the rest of the
No,
season?
he's finishing the season because you have to remember there's a 12-team playoff. You don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't matter. I think
Absolutely.
because what if he sneaks out of the playoffs at number 10 seed and they win the national championship? Then no one gives a fuck who they lost to in the middle of the season. So that's my point.
What if that third loss comes here?
Well, I would think to let him finish the season because it's Ohio State. I mean, I think this year, believe it or not, you could see a 3-win team sneak in because a 3-loss team. I'm sorry, sneak in because there's 12 seeds. I mean, technically there's only 11 because one of them's got to be a group of 5. So no, I don't think there's any way unless he like rolls off a fucking Iowa, Oregon, Penn State like loss in a row before they even get to Michigan.
That's what I'm saying. Like 3 losses before they even get to that Michigan matchup. Like, do they let him continue the season?
I don't think he's home. I think he's still there until the end of the season.
I think he would get till Michigan, and then
if he loses Michigan, he's gone.
Well, I don't think it matters.
The season's over.
I think once the game is over, they would fire him.
Yeah,
but
I don't even think. I think if Ryan Day beats Michigan, I think he stays.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
That's all they care about, man. Because
it's an interesting take.
Even with Harbaugh, because even with Harbaugh, like his first 5 years, I mean, Mikey knows. Mm-hmm. I wanted him gone big time. Absolutely hated Harbaugh the first 5 seasons. I thought he was a detriment to Michigan, and then out of nowhere, he pulls a win against Ohio State out of his ass, and I was like, oh, okay, this guy might be onto something.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Being an Auburn fan. So, like, we've held on to coaches that have beaten a la Gus Malzahn, that towards the end of his season, he was giving us 8-win seasons, which that's not good enough to stay there. But he's beating Alabama as one of those 8 wins. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll give him another year to see what happens. So I can believe, that that's a possibility, that he loses 3 games but beats Michigan. And they're like, okay, well, he beat Michigan. Well, that'll get us some recruits. We'll rebuild for next year.
I mean, I personally just think if he either drops the game to Michigan or is a first-round exit in the playoffs, like, he's gone.
Well, I think he could do both of those. I think he could run. I think if he runs the table and loses to Michigan and then loses in the first round, I think they fire him.
I think even if he just loses to Michigan, they might fire him.
No.
And then I think if they beat Michigan, go in the first round of the playoffs, and they lose, he's gone.
I think it depends on who they play.
No, I do. Like if Ryan Day loses the game, it's over. He's gone.
Yeah, I mean, especially with this year, let's talk about Michigan real quick.
Yeah.
Let's go to them because
big time.
This is like, if with no disrespect to Michigan, because they're the defending national champions, but this is like a situation where it's unusual. They're defending national champions. They lose their coach to the NFL, and their team is going to be worse than last year. And a lot of people aren't giving them a chance to to win the conference championship.
Yeah.
So they kind of are flying under the radar a little bit, being the national championship, which I actually think is weird, but it's going to be to their advantage because they're definitely going to build on that, and that's going to be all over the locker room material, right? Chip on your shoulder. No one's giving us a chance. But yeah, this is an interesting year for them, and like you said, if Ohio State can't beat this Michigan team, like I can understand the last 2 years. Those 2 Michigan teams were really good, right? They can't beat this Michigan team with a talent Ohio State this year's. I agree. I think you go 11-1, lose to Michigan as your one loss, win the conference championship, and lose in the playoffs and get fired.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. But speaking about Michigan, why don't you start off? Or actually, you know what, Shadley, why don't you start off? This is your team. Tell us about, your deficiencies or where you think are going to be good this year, and give us your ceiling.
So when it comes to my Wolverines, I have their ceiling at 10-3 this year, and I have a scary floor at 7-5.
Wow, matched mine.
That's exactly.
The big question mark.
Now 10-3.
The big question mark, right?
Is that are you saying they're making the
10-2?
championship?
My bad.
10-2. Okay.
Yeah, 10-2. That was my bad. But it's a big question mark at quarterback, right? Like Alex Orji I'm a big fan of his athleticism. I love it. But at the same time, it scares me because he reminds me of Joe Milton. And Joe Milton had that great game when his first start for Michigan against Minnesota. He had that great game, and then absolutely shit the bed. Started he looked like Cam Newton his rookie year. He was just absolutely overthrowing everyone and taking scrambles when he didn't need to take them. Which is what scares me about Alex Orji, because I haven't seen him throw in a college game yet. I've seen him throw practice and
spring and all that.
Spring game. Yeah, but in a college setting, I'm very thankful that we have Fresno State off the rip to kind of get his feet wet. I was hoping that Alex Orji was going to make a throw in the national championship, because once he popped in, everyone knew it was going to be a run. So I was like, oh, maybe Harbaugh's got something up his butt. But I was wrong. I was sadly disappointed. I want Jaden Davis to start. I don't care if he's a freshman. I want Jaden Davis to start. Just let him get his wings, just like Chad Henne. And Chad Henne wound up being one of the best Michigan quarterbacks in a long time. And that's what I have hopes for with Jaden Davis.
Mm-hmm. Who did you guys? Who's your guys' offensive coordinator now?
Do you know? I don't even know.
Yeah. Do you think that the head coach is going to, since he was
I think Sherrone Moore. I think he's going to wind up, even if he's not the one calling the plays, it's going to be the telephone game a little bit of him telling his offensive coordinator of what to run.
Yeah, that's kind of scares me personally, just given the games that Harbaugh was out.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I liked Sherrone Moore. I thought he did pretty well as our interim head coach.
You couldn't have asked for more.
Game scared me.
You didn't lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But that Maryland game scared me a little bit, but I think it kind of opened his eyes to what a head coach needs to do to get prepared for not just like a big game. I mean, it was a trap game. But
I think with that schedule that you guys have now, you guys are going to get that opportunity very quickly on finding out who your guys are and how you guys want to identify as an offense. Like, you play Texas early, which sucks. I don't have you guys winning that game. But that is going to be a huge identity game.
It's at home.
And it's at home. And good news, it's non-conference game, so it's not going to hurt you guys in trying to get to that Big Ten championship. So,
right.
That game, you're going to find out if Orji's your dude, or if you need to go over to the true freshman. I'm sure if Orji starts off bad, that true freshman's probably going to get some burn in the back half.
I have a feeling we're going to see both of that Fresno State game. I think, just like Cade McNamara and JJ, I think that's kind of how it's going to be ran, at least the Fresno State game, because I think you have to go into Texas. You can't have questions. You have to know who it is off the rip right away.
For sure, and you guys should be blowing the brakes off of Fresno State to where both QBs can easily get burned.
That's a team.
2007.
That's a team you really don't want to play week one, as your warm-up game, because they do have talent, and you'll probably see them, in my opinion, the next 3 years. They'll be a Power 4 team.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. But and then moving on to the running backs, I think we're going to be a 3 running back committee. I don't think it's going to be a 2. Because I think between Mullings and Dunlap taking the number 2 spot and the number 3 spot, I think it's pretty interchangeable. Mm-hmm. Donovan Edwards, it's good to see him kind of back in the Don form. I know he was dealing with a lot of mental health issues and stuff last year. I'm glad to see that his performance in national championship kind of sparked. I think it sparked a good trend heading into the spring. And but Mullings and Dunlap, I love Mullings. I think he's a good, quick little back who can still lay his shoulder down, which is awesome. And then I've got, our studs coming back. Coach Moore, that's huge in my opinion. And then Will Johnson, who's arguably the best corner in the game right now. He had a completion percentage of, I think, sub 50% all season last year, which is massive. But yeah, Will Johnson, Donovan Edwards obviously coming back. Mason Graham up the middle is going to be an absolute terror. Makari Page coming back for, I think it's his sixth year. But yeah, Makari Page coming back. We've got Rod Moore. I know he's hurt. He's not going to play at all this year, but it's going to be big for him to be there for the transfers that came in. I think we got like 2 safeties in the transfer portal who have a chance to earn some play time.
Yeah.
And then absolute stud of Colston Loveland. I mean, I fucking love this dude. He's the best Michigan tight end since Jake Butt.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
he tore up college.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got good players still. I think the defense is going to be really good. The coaching situation kind of scares me. Just personally, my hot take is he's only going to be there for 3 seasons. Like, I don't think he's Michigan's guy going forward. I understand why they hired him, given all the games he won as an interim coach. I just think in this day and age, in college football, like you even saw it with Harbaugh. When Harbaugh first started there, he was kind of this guy's identity and ground and pound and, you know, build from the inside out, and which is a great way to start a team. But as you saw him start to progress in his later seasons of, we got to score some points and open this up a little bit. I'm curious to see how that works this season and the next couple seasons for this guy, and hopefully he can make that adjustment. You never know. I mean, it's Michigan. He could bring in a big-time offense coordinator or something and light it up. So, but regarding this season, I think their ceiling's 10-2. And that's with the 10-2 comes from the big 3 games, them winning 2 of them. The big 3 being Texas, Oregon, and at Ohio State. Luckily, 2 of those are at home. So I think they could steal 2. In my opinion, for them to steal 2, it has to be Oregon as a win 1. And then either Texas or at Ohio State. Now, right now, you're in Ohio State's head, so that could be an easier win than Texas. That being said, those are probably some of the 3 hardest games in the country outside of Georgia.
Yeah.
Just because you've got 3 teams right there that are probably going to be in the playoffs.
I was going to say, those might be the best 3 teams in college football, minus, like you said, Georgia. Like that the tough slate. Right. Thankfully, outside of those 3 games, though, I think you guys drew up a very easy conference schedule.
Yep.
I'm not big on a lot of the newcomers coming from the Pac-12, like Washington,
outside
USC.
Of Oregon.
Yeah, outside of Oregon. The other teams, I'm not big on this year. I think they lost more than they gained, and they're about to get into a conference where they don't know what the fuck just hit them.
Especially defense-driven, so
that's what I mean.
Yeah, and we've been talking about it for a while now too. Is these West Coast teams coming to the Midwest in November is not going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of these boys have probably seen snow 5 times in their life.
Yeah, except for those probably Washington folk. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I really can't wait to see USC and UCLA in the Midwest.
And Mike, you said your ceiling's 10-2, right?
Yeah, so my ceiling for them is 10-2, and then the floor is what everyone is wanting to say. Like Michigan's about to be terrible. I have them at 7-5, losing the 3 big games and then dropping 2 others, probably like where USC or Washington maybe. But I mean, I really don't see that floor getting touched.
See, I honestly think 7-5 is way too low as a floor.
Yeah,
I think I want to say 9-3, but I'll go conservative and say 8-4.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with them losing the big 3 and then slipping up and losing to somebody like at Washington.
Yeah,
which I'm not high on this year, but still, like you said, Chadley, it's going to be an interesting dynamic back and forth. Like going to the West Coast teams coming to the Midwest, all of that travel.
Right.
It's going to be interesting, especially because you have to remember these guys are students.
Thankfully, we've been doing that over the last couple of seasons.
Yep.
We've had 1 game in the West Coast, I think 2 of the last 3 years. So I think that it helps us a little bit with some of the juniors and seniors and stuff. But yeah, my gut is telling me that Michigan's going to go 9-3 this year.
Yeah, I think that's where I would put them if I had to put a projection. I know we'll get into that different episode, but I have to agree with you. Let's roll over, Mike, and let's actually take a curveball and let's go to USC because it's an interesting team to talk about. personally, I'm really not high on USC this year. I think this year is going to put Lincoln Riley on the hot seat for the following season. And not to mention, I think you're going to see them, it's going to start with them having a poor season and then losing recruits because of the poor season. Because you have to remember early signing days in December. A lot of these guys are going to be committed, but that's not a letter of intent. They could drop out, regarding their season. I think week 1 LSU for them is a huge game. I am big on LSU this year. I know you are not, Mike. But if LSU comes out there with an improved defense, the quarterback, situation is going to kind of dictate LSU's season. Personally, I think everyone's going to see how Nussmeier is a good quarterback. But if LSU comes out there week 1 and stomps their ass in Vegas, I think that is going to set the tone for the rest of the season of them dropping a bunch of games. Mike, do you want to start off with your ceiling? We'll rotate.
Yeah, so my ceiling for them is 8-4. I mean, they did no benefit to themselves moving into a new conference and drawing some of the teams they got. Like their non-conference games with LSU and then Notre Dame at the very end, those are going to be 2 tough games for them to play. Granted, both of them are home. Those are still 2 teams that I think are more complete than them. And then when you go to in-conference, they still play at Michigan, at Wisconsin. They play Penn State at home, but they play some of the better Big Ten teams. Like Rutgers, you guys will see later on, I'm very big on. I think Rutgers is a pretty good team. They used to got them in Nebraska. They did not get any room to slip up. They don't have that many weeks where they could be like, all right, let's just play our game, control the tempo, and keep it moving.
Oh, God, I can't wait to tell you this here. Shadley, you go first so I can go ahead and do my – Mike's very choking on his fucking Zen. It's going to fuck the volume up for everyone listening. But, Shadley, go ahead and give us your ceiling because I want to say my ceiling and floor back-to-back so I can go ahead and drop the, hot take.
Yeah, so I've got USC. I have their ceiling. I mean, this is the greatest season they could have this year at 9-3. And then I have their floor at 6-6. My gut tells me 7-5. Mike, they're home against Wisconsin, bud.
Oh, are they? Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah, they're home against Wisconsin, which is a big. I mean, that's a big difference. So going into Camp Randall is not easy. But yeah, I've got them losing USC, Utah State. That better be an easy win. And then coming to the Big House is going to be it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping to go to that game too.
Yep, that'll be a fun one.
But yeah, and then home against Penn State, they lucked out on that one, not having to go to freaking. What is that, Beaver Stadium? Yep. No, not Beaver Stadium.
Nope, you're right. You're right. Yep,
oh, it is?
Beaver Stadium.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because that's what?
Penn State?
Yeah,
I thought it was Happy Valley.
No, Happy Valley is the town.
Wow.
Beaver Stadium.
Yep.
Is the stadium.
Yeah. But yeah, Mike, I'm with you too. I think they're going to lose to Rutgers, and I think it's going to be a bad loss. I really do.
Wow, I'm glad we're all talking about that because I have that as calculated in my floor.
Yeah.
I'm huge on Rutgers, man.
They better beat UCLA. If they don't beat UCLA, that's I don't know what Lincoln Riley's doing.
Yeah. Now, my ceiling is also with you guys. I'm sorry, not with you, Shedley. At Mike, you 8-4. I think the schedule is extremely tough for their first year in, and 8-4 I think is by far the best they can do. That being said, I'm going to drop my floor in a second. But there was a ton of games last year. I did watch a lot of West Coast football, and I watched Caleb Williams play. And I think if you take Caleb Williams on off that team last year, God, they lose a lot of games. Yeah. There was a lot of games he was making some crazy plays. That being said, I don't care who their quarterback is, you're not going to fill that spot. No. It's going to be a step back at least. Their defense improved last year, still not good enough for the Big Ten. That being said, their floor I have, this could be, you take this as a hot take, 4-8. I think they could easily come in and lose and be 4-8. I mean, they could lose to LSU. They could lose to Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers, Washington, Nebraska, UCLA, Notre Dame. All of those games, in my opinion, could be toss-ups. And I don't know which way the ball is going to bounce. Now, I know that some of these teams, like, for example, Minnesota and Maryland are not great teams, but it's the fact that they're at Minnesota, which when USC comes into town, it's going to be sold out. And the weird stuff has happened in that stadium. And at Maryland, you see teams like Ohio State who come in there highly ranked and struggle. And then Rutgers, we already talked about. Rutgers, the only thing is USC will have them at home, which is the farthest fucking possible game Rutgers could play. So they have that to their advantage. But that being said, I don't trust this team at all. And 4-8, in my opinion, is definitely in the possibility, especially with Utah State. That's not like a let's overlook them and go to Michigan. Like they could do that and slip up and lose that game.
Yeah, this team scares me. It's just a bunch of question marks. I really don't know what to expect. At this point, I want to give Lincoln Riley the benefit of the doubt because he is a very good offensive-minded guy. But, man, Lincoln Riley going to the Big Ten is like the worst thing he could have ever fucking done.
Well, the problem is he's never built a defense.
And that's why I say that.
And a lot of these games, he doesn't have his quarterback anymore. He can't just outscore everybody.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin, in my opinion, last year is like, I mean, even this year, you need to circle them on this schedule because Wisconsin last year had a good defense, struggled on offense, and that lost them a lot of games. They bring in Tyler Van Dyke, and now it's like I don't know what to think of them. So that's a tough game. Nebraska, in my opinion, could beat USC in like a crazy, like 17-14 game. Like USC is going to struggle to score against that defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because that's how Nebraska is going to win their games, is close games, because they don't really have an offense, but their offense is going to get better. Their offense cost them a ton of games last year with turnovers. So I can easily see them losing to Nebraska. Mm-hmm. I think Nebraska's going in the right direction.
Yeah, Nebraska's a big potential.
Yeah, and
team.
I think the saving grace for USC, I think, for that Nebraska game is that's their bye week. So they play Washington, they have their bye week, and then they've got Nebraska at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having an extra week to prepare for Nebraska's defense is going to be helpful. But yeah, talk about these West Coast teams coming into the Big Ten. A lot of them are built for high fly offense. So they've got, corners that might not necessarily hit like Iowa's do, or Michigan's. And
luckily for USC,
I don't think
too.
I don't think their front seven. I don't think the front seven is built for the ground and pound.
Definitely not. But luckily for USC, looking at their schedule, there's not really many cold away games they have when you look at the back half. So
no, they
did luck out there. Like Nebraska on November 9th, if it was at Nebraska, would be like
scary.
Yeah, like you could chalk that up as a loss.
Yeah.
So I think they got lucky there. I think it's interesting this year they have UCLA not as the last game of the season, and they have Notre Dame. And personally, I think Notre Dame will break it off in them. But yeah, it's an interesting schedule for them. I just don't believe in Lincoln Riley.
No, I mean, it's been hard to.
No, I'm with you.
Did you say your floor, Mike?
My floor for them is 6-6.
I know you're talking about it. And then Shadley, what was your floor?
6-6.
Okay. So I'm way more down on them than you are. I can see it
I'm
unraveling.
I'm as down, but I just don't see them dropping that many.
I think the wheels could come off the bus quick with those first 3 games.
It's very possible.
They could lose the first 3 games, and then it's like, everyone jump ship, get in the transfer portal. But let's go to Oregon. I'll start off with Oregon. I agree with you, Mike. Ceiling.
12-0, undefeated.
I think that this is the Texas of the Big Ten. This is the team that's coming in that's the most ready on both sides of the ball to win a championship. Oregon, one of the best things they could have ever done was hiring Dan Lanning from Georgia, who Oregon, again, was one of those teams that never played defense. He brings in, says, hey, we're still going to have a high-flying offense, but we're going to build this defense up. And that's, it's going to be so well for them this year going to the Big Ten. And I know a lot of people, to me, question mark is the quarterback. Now, it's the best quarterback they could have gotten.
Kid from Oklahoma, right? I'm
Yes.
struggling on his name.
Well, he's actually just came from UCF. It's Dylan Gabriel.
That's right.
Well, no, he went. I'm sorry, Dylan. He went from
UCF
UCF to Oklahoma to Oregon. Now, Dylan Gabriel's got all the talent. It's just he can't fuck games up for them. Like he can't go out there and make turnovers in some of these close games, and that's what worries me. He does that, but their schedule's fairly easy. The first 3 games: Idaho, Boise State, Oregon State. I already talked to you about this, Mike. Oregon State's not the same team as last year. And I think they win those 3 easily. I think they beat UCLA easily. I think they beat Michigan State easily. And then the game, Ohio State. It's at this point, I'm not leaning either direction. It's a coin flip. Like I have to see them both through the first 5 weeks and see who's stumbling.
Yeah, completely.
Purdue is at sneaky game sometimes.
Purdue's gonna be so bad this year.
But it's just like it's their first true like Big 12 away game. Or I mean Big 10 away game. So it's just like an interesting game to watch. And then the big house at Michigan. It's can Oregon be undefeated at this point and Michigan be the thorn in their side that takes them down and shakes up, the Big 10? That's a possibility. And at Wisconsin, it's going to be very interesting, especially if they're undefeated at that point. So, Mike, what do you think?
I mean, we already talked about it. This is the only 12-0 games to me that honestly scare me. Early week 2, Boise State. I really am big on Boise State. I think they have the best running back in football right now. And just being an early game that they're probably going to overlook, I can see that game being kind of close. I still have them winning.
Boise State's like that UCF of the group of 5 when UCF was there, though. Everyone knows who Boise State is, so they're not going to sneak up on you. And not to mention, Boise State, Oregon's defense is too good. They'll just lock that dude down, and they'll have to throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I still have Oregon winning it. I haven't won it by multiple possessions, but I think that would be a game that's like kind of like, oh shit, it's halftime. It's kind of close, dog. We need to put this game on. But
like Rutgers last year.
But like, yeah, looking at their schedule, I mean, if they beat Ohio State in week 6, I don't know a team
Michigan
that will
and
be able to
Wisconsin,
stop them.
just the two toughest games.
It'll be the ending at Michigan and at Wisconsin, but
And Washington being a
rivalry, I guess, game.
You
but
never know. Washington's not going to be the Washington of last year, but
Washington
their
lost
quarterback's
everything.
Their quarterback is going to be good. But, yeah, interesting, though, for them. I think they're, definitely the top 2 teams in the Big Ten. Shadley, what do you have for their ceiling?
I have Oregon ceiling at 11-1. I think they're going to drop one of the 3 games, whether it be Ohio State, Michigan, or at Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Wisconsin game is going to be a hell of a lot harder than a lot of people think. No matter how Wisconsin's playing that year, that wind off of Lake Michigan sucks. And then I have their floor at 10-2.
Yeah,
I don't. My gut tells me 11-1. Just looking at everything, but to go back to that Purdue game, playing at Purdue is, for some ungodly reason, difficult.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
It doesn't matter
I
if they
don't
have
get
2
it.
wins at that point. Like, I think it'll be a weird trap game.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
still
like
Boise
no
State,
one thinks
Mike.
about going to West Lafayette and being like, "Damn, this place is hard."
Mhm. I agree. I have their floor at 10-2. I don't see a way where they lose Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio State. I think they're too good. But I can see a 10-2. I can see them losing 2 of those games, preferably. Like you said, the at Wisconsin game's kind of weird because it's going to be cold as fuck. Now, I know Oregon's used to playing in the cold, but it's going to be, like you said, windy. Could be snowing. It's definitely going
about
to
that Midwestern cold.
it's going to hamstring their offense, and it's really going to be a defensive battle, which can be interesting. So, yeah, definitely going to be a good game to watch in that Week 11 spot. Let's go on our list to Penn State. Penn State. Shadley, why don't you start with Penn State?
So Penn State, I have, and this is going to be kind of crazy, a lot like your hot take with with freaking USC. I honestly, I'm kind of high on Penn State, and it's not so much because of who's playing, but it's just the fact that they just keep winning under James Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
They continuously have a winning season, and I don't freaking understand it. I have their ceiling at 10-2, but my gut tells me 8-4. If I'm being real,
as a ceiling or
I
as a
think that
final
they-
record?
He's saying it's like a projection.
as the final record. It's just I think that they benefit a lot from playing where they play. Like, their crowd is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the stadiums that I truly hope to go to one day in my life.
Yep.
Yeah,
And they benefit from somewhat an easy schedule. But the question that gets me, though, is at West Virginia to kick off the season.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you went
Like,
there.
how
'Cause I
did-
know
how
Michael
did
and I were going to do that.
Like, how did that happen?
I think they fucked up by doing that.
Well, you have to remember too, like
Right.
West Virginia is like one of those teams that you schedule where you don't know if it's going to be like a big game, it's going to give you a primetime spot, or if it's going to be like they suck and it's going to be an easy cakewalk for us at a conference. But they're like that weird middle ground of like they're going to be good. It's just how good, you know.
But why away? Why have such a bigger program in Penn State? Like, why are you agreeing to go away to West Virginia?
It's
You know what
probably
I mean?
it's probably a 1-1. West Virginia's probably going to come back next year.
It's got to be. Did they play him? I don't think they played him last year, right?
No, I'm
Oh,
saying
they did.
next year.
Yeah,
Oh,
they did.
they played them last year.
Yeah, they played him last year. They were at Penn State last year.
Yeah,
Okay, so there you go.
1-1.
Okay, so all right, so that makes a little more sense. But yeah, I think that Penn State also benefits from a fairly easy schedule too.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, that being their only like non-conference game, there's West Virginia, which I'm big on West Virginia. I don't think they're contenders by any
Me
means,
too.
but I think they're a dark horse team to fuck up some of these higher rated guys. So like
Yeah.
going straight into there, it's gonna be tough. Like West Virginia is a different fucking beast right now, in my opinion. But then you got like Bowling Green,
but-
Kent State, and then I feel like they really benefited by getting a lot of the bottom of the barrel Big Ten guys. Like you look at
Yeah.
Illinois, UCLA, USC, a lot of newcomers there. But then you got at the very end Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland, like teams that are just giant question marks right now.
Exactly. Yeah,
And you play Ohio State at home, so that's a good thing going for you. Like a lot of their big tough games, they get that benefit of the doubt of playing at home.
yeah. I mean, I can easily see them heading into October being 3-1, which I think. Yeah, I mean that's just going to build so much momentum for them, and
Yeah.
I mean James Franklin he'll fuck it up at the end of the season like he always does.
Yeah, I was going to say that and bring that up. Like, I know the national media doesn't really say it, but I know Penn State fans have to be irritated with, having
I don't
all
get
this
it.
talent in this great home field environment, and you just can't even get to play for a championship.
Yeah.
You can't. Now, I know that
The structure of the Big Ten didn't benefit them at all.
I agree. And now that the structure's gone, a year like this, if you're a Penn State fan and you're sucked into your team being good, because I'm going to give you my take in a second, is this is the year that you could legitimately play for a title because your schedule is so fucking easy. I mean, you only play Ohio State. You don't have to play Michigan this year, which is huge. Now, I'm not saying
you don't
I'm
have
not
to play Oregon either.
I'm not sleeping on these other teams because I'm going to get to what I really think Penn State's going to do. But like, if there's a year on paper and you're a Penn State fan and you're used to playing one of the hardest schedules in the Big Ten every year, you're like, wow, this schedule looks a lot
nice,
easier.
Yeah.
It's kind of the Auburn situation, what I was talking about. That's my team where, Auburn's got a top 5 schedule for toughness in the country. But as an Auburn fan, I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, this is a lot easier than normal. We don't have to play LSU. So looking at this, I agree, ceiling 10-2. But it just doesn't sit well with me. I know that you can't put a lot of stock into the spring, but I remember coming out here in April and turning on the spring game and saying, Mike, watch this fucking quarterback. This guy couldn't hit a receiver to save his life with no pass rush. And now I understand that he played fairly well last year, but I don't know what the fuck happened in the spring game. And I don't know if it's a receiver issue with them losing Keandre Lambert-Smith.
He was there during spring.
I know that, but I'm talking about, they rotate all the receivers in the spring. The timing wasn't there or something, but God, it looked bad. And personally, I'm down on them this year. Like, I think the schedule got easier, but I think they got worse. They lost their coordinator. They lost their leading receiver.
I think they lost both their leading receivers, or 1 and 2. I think both left after spring.
And part of me also believes, because if you were a receiver for for Penn State, you'd be like, this is our year. Our schedule's easy. So that makes me even more scared, because that spring game to me must have been like, those receivers been like, wait a minute.
That's the eye opener.
This is fucking bad, because it was really bad. Really bad, and no one talked about it. I mean, I encourage everyone listening to go and watch the game on YouTube or pull up ESPN Plus and watch it, because it was egregious.
It looked like I was out
offense.
there playing quarterback, and I have zero arm.
I mean, I'm telling you that there was some times where Keandre would come across the middle on a drag route, wide ass open, and he'd throw it fucking 6 yards over their head. So I don't know what was going on that day, but Mike, tell your ceiling real quick so we can get to the floor.
So I
can
have
tell you
him
what
at
I
10
think
and
of him.
2, and like Nick said, I have zero stock in Drew Allar. Like, former 5-star QB, who to me has just never looked like a starting QB on a powerhouse team. Like, this
Isn't
dude
it-
just seems so
Is it
underwhelming.
Aller?
Aller, I don't fucking know.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Drew.
I think Drew's a fucking bitch.
Yeah, I don't think he's good. And I think that their defense is not to the caliber of Michigan's, where it's going to be, we can rely on them and ground and pound the ball and win a ton of games.
And they just lost Olu Fashanu, one of the best tackles that you can really ask for. Like,
Yeah.
their O-line is getting worse. Their receivers got worse. Like, this offense is going to be, like, worse than, like, Iowa, in my opinion. Like, classic Iowa offense, this team will be worse.
And inside, I really want to put their floor at 6-6, but I think that's a little aggressive because I just don't have any stock in them. So I'll say 7-5. And I'd really like to think that they're going to finish around 8-4. Like,
Yeah,
I really think
I have
like,
the same floor, and I have them.
and
truly,
you don't
like, getting
you
near
don't
that
hear
floor.
it in the national media, because the national media thinks that this coach is doing the fucking best job. That's, he's locked in. He's one of the greatest coaches, which he's a great coach. But when you start giving, he's a great coach on paper. Okay, 10-2 every season. A lot of teams would take that when we talk about this. But
Right.
coming from a fan of Auburn, where there was a stretch of years where we were always good at 9-3 or 10-2, and you just couldn't make it to the fucking conference championship, you start to be like, why can't we be the team down the road? Why can't we be Ohio State? Why can't we be Michigan? So I know those fans are thinking that, and I think this is the year where he goes like 8-4, and his fans put his ass on the hot seat.
Yeah, and I think media-wise,
Yeah, I
they've
think
just
they're finally
benefited
realizing
from
you
being
can be
little
gone.
brother in the conference. Like, they've always been
Well,
number
no, I
two
think they
to
get
Ohio
sucked
State
into the
and
pageantry.
Michigan.
I think that like ESPN's like, oh, the fucking whiteout. They always go 10-2.
Oh, for sure. They get all the hype in the beginning of the season, but like when they fall short, no one comes at them because, big brothers over there are duking it out. And now you're adding Oregon and potentially even
Well, they
USC into the
also-
mix. So it's like they're not getting as harshly looked at as a lot of other teams.
Well, they also, too, through the national media's lens, like this is the whole thing with Gus Malzahn at Auburn. Everyone's like, how can you fire a guy that's going 10-2 and your two losses
Michigan
are
and Ohio State.
well, in our situation, was number 1 Georgia, number 2 Alabama.
Yeah.
But our point is we can be as good as them. So that's how these guys feel. So, but with this schedule, they don't have that benefit of the doubt. If you lose 3 games, this is like, why the fuck did we lose to Washington or Minnesota or West Virginia? Like, we should be better than these teams. So even USC, because I think by that week 5, USC could have 2 or 3 losses. So
Yeah.
they're not going to get the benefit of doubt this year, in my opinion. Floor,
Yeah,
Mike.
I'm completely with you. I
My
think
floor
James Franklin
is
will finally
7-5.
be.
Or Shadley, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, I think, finally, Penn State fans will kind of, the ones who haven't already woken up, will finally look at James Franklin and be like, well, guess it's time to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of great coaches out there who can't get over the hump, and this is the literal hump. He cannot get over it. How many times now, to their benefit, the only thing that's going to save Penn State and James Franklin is how many times have they went 10-2 and finished as like the 8th ranked seed team.
Yeah.
So this year could be one of those years where they go 10-2 and they finish in the top 10 and they make the playoff. And now it's like all of a sudden like those fans are like, oh, we've made it over the hump in their head because they can't put 2 and 2 together that we shouldn't have lost some of these games, but we made the playoff. So they might. That's my only thing that I think is going towards James Franklin.
Yeah, that's fair. I can definitely see that as well.
Let's go. Let's get some of these shitty teams out of the way. Illinois. Sorry for fans listening to these teams, but they are shitty, and I'm sorry you guys don't put any money into fucking football. Just hibernate until basketball season or something. I don't know what Illinois is good at, but yeah, not very good here, Mike.
I mean, I'll start off. Yeah, they're not good at all. But like their best players on defense ended up getting drafted. Jason Newton, or however you say, the D tackle that was just busting it up in the middle, he's gone. Like it's a team that lost more than they gained, and they already didn't have a lot. Now you look at their schedule, and their schedule is not even fucking like it's not easy. It's not a cakewalk.
At a conference, you pull Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas week 2 at Nebraska. Then you still got Penn State versus Michigan,
Can't chalk
at
up
Oregon,
Purdue as a win.
at Rutgers, and then at Northwestern. As you know, as shitty of a
Northwestern's gonna
team
be
Northwestern
terrible.
is, but they don't have a stadium.
Illinois
they're playing
not that bad.
They're playing on fucking Lake Michigan. Like no cover,
I know.
no windbreak. They're playing on Lake Michigan. I think it's Lake Michigan. It's one of the fucking Great Lakes.
It's Lake Michigan.
All right, it is Lake Michigan. Like that game is going to be freezing fucking
It
cold.
will be, but Illinois knows
and
cold.
it's going to be windy.
Now, I'm not really worried about the Northwestern game. Purdue is like a big game for them, I think. Like, that's a must-win game. But, yeah. I mean, tell us your ceiling, Mike.
My ceiling for them 6-6, and that's only if their O-line can continue to be one of the better units in the country. Like,
Wow,
there's just
6-6.
not a lot here.
I'm looking at these games, and that's a fucking stretch. 6-6 is a stretch.
Yeah,
Like, I have them at 5-7. Like, I'm trying to find the 6th game because, like, my 5 wins, I'll read them off, is Eastern Illinois, Central Michigan. That's 2. Purdue is 3. Minnesota 4. Northwestern 5. Like, I think Rutgers is a lot better than people say they are. I think Nebraska is going to be significantly better than Illinois. I'm assuming one of those 6 wins is to Nebraska, Kansas, or Rutgers.
Michigan State.
Michigan State, yeah, I kind of forgot about them. I could see that one. But, man, Illinois is just bad.
Yeah, it's not a lot to look forward to this season.
Okay.
Your ceiling is barely edging away to a bowl game. What do you got over there, Shadley?
So funny enough, I actually have their ceiling at 7-5. I do. I think that if they can come out of September being 3-1, beating Eastern Illinois, Kansas, and Central Michigan, fire up chips.
You think there's a world where they can hang with Kansas?
I don't think so.
I do. And I think it's because, I mean, yes, Luke Altmaier is not, he's not the greatest. He's really not. But he is one of the better quarterbacks that Illinois has had in a while. And I truly think he's going to have a big year this year. I think he's going to look good. I mean, he's not, obviously he's not going to contend for the Heisman. He's not going to be close to that. But I think that there's a chance that he has, 2,800 yards with, let's say, 16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I think if he has a 2-1, if Illinois can take care of the ball, I think that their defense is going to hold a lot of games. And then, because like the 7, I'd say if they can, so there's 3 right there, right? Eastern Illinois. I think if they beat Kansas and Central Michigan, they're not beating Nebraska.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. And then let's see, the 3 Purdue. I think they'll beat Minnesota. That's 5. Michigan State, and then Northwestern. Northwestern is hot
Yeah, they're
garbage.
bad. They're really bed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hot garbage.
I just
don't-
can't get over the.
they don't even wanna
like. I
make
don't
the
know
football
anything
better.
about this quarterback, but I mean, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe he is a fucking dog. It's rough for him. I don't see them coming away with 7 wins.
I think Kansas is way
Yeah,
better. Like the only thing they have is they have Kansas at home compared to like at Nebraska. I think that's why we chalk that up as a loss.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think so.
that being said, floor wise, I mean I have 3-9.
Yeah, 3-9, and honestly, I'm not even confident about it. I could see them winning 2 games. I don't think this team is really going to light a candle. I think they're going to win against some of these really bad teams like Eastern Illinois, Central
Like, I
Michigan.
think they could fuck up.
But
and
outside
lose
of those
Central
2
Michigan.
games, I don't think any game's a lock.
Like I think Northwestern's so bad that's like a guaranteed win. So that's one. I think they could win Eastern Illinois, and then like win a Purdue, win Central Michigan, like somewhere like in that area, Michigan State. But yeah, 3-9 if the wheels come off the bus, I think is where I have them. What do you have them, Shadley? I'm sure it's much higher.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean not much higher.
Okay.
I have their floor at 4-8.
Okay, so we're not crazy.
No, I have their floor at 4-8. I have the 4 like guarantees in my eyes are Eastern Illinois, Central Michigan, Purdue, and Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Those are my 4. Those are my. Oh, I'm sorry, not Minnesota, Northwestern.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my 4 guarantees. But my gut says 6-6. I think that they're just going to go 500 this year. They have a pretty easy Big Ten schedule.
I think their line on most betting props was 5.5 wins.
Okay. Go to Indiana, Mike. Start us off.
All right, looks like they got
Roll through some
FIU.
of these teams.
Let me move this over here so it's easy for me to see. FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern. Like, you couldn't ask for an easier 6 stretch, in my opinion. FIU, Western Illinois, both should be guaranteed wins. UCLA, I don't think is very good. But I think it's a team that will compete with Indiana, especially with it being over at UCLA. Then you got like Charlotte, like they drew up all of the bottom tier guys that they could early on. Very much potential. They could start out 6-0.
100%.
I don't think they do. But then you got at the back, you got Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State. And then it just finally it gets tough. You got versus Michigan and at Ohio State in back-to-back weeks. And then ended off, you got Purdue. So pretty soft schedule, pretty lightweight schedule. But this Indiana team scares me. I don't see them having the pieces that they've had recently. They got a new coaching hire with Kurt Cignetti, who I don't know anything about. I don't know if you guys know his background.
Cignetti, yeah. Dude, I love his moxie. I do. I mean, he's out here talking about Indiana winning the Big Ten, because why not?
Yeah. Love the confidence.
And I love that. I love that.
Honestly, I'm a little higher than you, Mike. I think that their ceiling, I could be a little conservative. I think they go 6-0. They can do that. Then they beat Michigan State and they beat Purdue. I think that's 8 right there. Could they steal one in Nebraska? Especially having Nebraska at home? It's possible. But I'll say ceiling 8-4. Like, I think that just the first 6 games are really easy. I think UCLA is going to be one of the worst teams, in my opinion, in the Big Ten. Not very high on them. FIU, you're going to beat. Charlotte, you're going to beat. They should beat Maryland. Northwestern, as we said, is a fucking, dumpster on fire rolling down the hill with no one in their program trying to save it. So that should be an easy win. I think there's a world they go 8-4.
It just scares me, like, with the schedule. A lot of their games that should be like, hey, we got this. Like, these are the winnable games. Most of them are on the road, and it very much scares me. Like, I don't think this team is that much better than teams like...
the first 6 games, though, only 2 of them are on the road.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't
And
think this team is
Northwestern's-
much better than UCLA or Northwestern.
Oh, significantly.
Or fucking Michigan State. Like, those are 3 games that they should win, and them both all being on the road, I don't have confidence in this team.
UCLA, I'll give you that one. Northwestern, this team is bounds higher than them. I don't think you realize how bad Northwestern is.
I know they're that
Like-
bad. They're bottom
like,
tier.
There's 128 teams, I think, in the FBS. I don't care if they're in the Power Four now. Sounds weird saying Power Four, but Power Four. They could be the worst team in the Power Four. Like, they're really bad. Like, there's nothing going right for them. When they fired their coach for really finding no proof of what the players were actually saying, and it was only a little group of players, wasn't the whole team, I think that buried their program for 10 years. Like, they were a team that, like, I mean, Shalley can talk on it. They were like one of those teams where it's like, okay, we can't overlook. Like, they can win 6 games. They can win 7 games. They fire that coach because they're a woke school, and they do that shit. And now they're playing in a fucking park. They're not going to be good. Like, they could win 2 games. Like, they're really bad.
I mean, this Indiana team, I have their ceiling at 7-5. I'm not leaning on their ceiling. I have their floor super down 3-9.
What do you have, Shadley?
I also have their ceiling at 7-5. And honestly, I think they're going to reach it.
Yeah.
I do. I think that they'll reach their ceiling. Those first 6 games, like you were saying, right? Like, home against FIU, cake. Western Illinois, cake. Charlotte, cake. At UCLA, I think a couple kids for Indiana might get caught up in the hype of playing in LA. Could just, that's just me. I don't think Indiana's really gone to the West Coast much lately. So I think that could be that potential one loss coming out of those first 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland is absolutely terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to see it. And then I've got them beating Michigan State.
Yep, I do too.
Yeah. And then for me, that Indiana-Purdue game to end the year is a coin toss. So
now,
but
yeah, Purdue at the end of the year.
I got them at 7-5. Yeah.
You think Purdue? I respect that. I mean, I just have it because Purdue's at home. I just kind of see it as like a way better chance Indiana win that game. But I agree, it's an interesting game at the end of the year. It's a game you could slip up and lose for sure. I mean, you're not that much better than Purdue, but
I mean, it's just a bad team on a bad schedule.
But see, I think that
bad as an easy schedule.
I think Indiana, though, props to them. They've been in the spotlight so much more the last like 3 or 4 years than they have for a while. They're recruiting well. They bring in a new coach. Like, they're benefiting from an easy schedule.
Didn't they bring in that QB from Miami of Ohio, Rourke? Didn't they bring him in?
They might have. To be honest, I didn't look, but I'm still high on.
Because I mean that kind of changes some things too. Because Rourke's the real deal. I mean that dude is. He played in the MAC, but that shit was legit.
Mm-hmm.
He had a hell of a year.
I mean, that being said, I'm staring at Mike's floor, and I'll wait for him to reveal that. But I have their floor at 6-6. Like, I honestly don't see a world where, like, I agree with you, Shadley. They could lose UCLA. I think they win the other 5, and then they win one more. Like, it's the Purdue, it's the Michigan State,
Absolutely.
It's the possible Washington, the upset of Nebraska. Like, those are, like, games that could happen. So I see 6-6. And, Shadley, you go with your floor first so Mike can get the, his wild take at the end. But
I have their floor at 4-8.
Okay, well, I guess it's not as wild as I thought.
Yeah, I mean,
I do.
Looking at their schedule, like outside of those 3 games we keep talking about, FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte, like there's not another game on this schedule that I look at as like, oh yeah, this should be a fucking 100% win. Like you could say Northwestern. I'm telling you, I don't think this team is good.
Like low key, I think Charlotte could beat Northwestern. I think FIU could beat Northwestern.
They might, and I don't think it's guaranteed they beat these guys. I think this is going to be one of the worst Indiana teams we've seen.
He just highlighted FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, and Charlotte as not guaranteed wins. I could make a case for the UCLA, but they're not fucking losing to Western Illinois, Mike.
Listen, brother.
No, and that's the thing. Like Indiana in the past too, right? Like it's always kind of been their MO where it's like they lose games in the Big Ten that they very much should. Like I could see them losing against Maryland just because that's Hoosier
Maryland,
football.
I'll give it to you. Like that, Maryland, in my opinion, is way better than Northwestern, even though Maryland's not good.
Yes, I agree. But then, I mean, Indiana's been a thorn in Michigan's side for the last 3 years. They've played us harder than fucking the Buckeyes have.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, tell us your floor.
It's 3-9. I said it earlier. I stand by it. I don't like this team. I think they're over under
Name
on
their
wins.
3 wins. in your favor.
FIU, Charlotte, Western Illinois.
Good God fucking bless.
I could see them losing out after that.
Indiana might bar you from coming in their state.
Think they're going to go Ozies in the Big Ten?
Yeah,
Just don't see in the
I
world
think
that
they could.
happens. Like, there's too many winnable games.
There's
Like,
too many losable games.
but, like, they're coin flips.
Yeah, so that's not where I have projected. That's just my floor for them. I have them projected. I'm just going to say it. I have them going 5-7. I think their win-loss on the season is like it's either 5.5 or 6.5. Either way, I'm taking their under. But I see more of these games being as coin flips against them than coin flips for them.
I think the first 6 games, there's not a world they don't come out with 4 wins.
Yeah, I can't unless Rourke gets hurt or something just like, unimaginable. Because, I mean, knock on wood, I want to see everyone's best players play.
Yeah.
But, yeah, unless Rourke gets hurt or like they can't click for whatever reason on defense, then I don't see that happening. I really don't.
All right, Mike, let's go back to the next team. Let's do Iowa. The fucking Hawkeyes. Do you think the Hawkeyes offense, I think if they just get a little bit better.
I think they do take a step forward this year. I don't think they're going to be a high-flying offense, but I do think that offense is going to become manageable. I don't think they're no longer going to be the joke of a team that wins 5-2.
But like,
well, they also don't have the pressure of being told they have to have 25 points a game.
I'm so glad you brought that up because for some stupid fucking reason, Iowa fans are embracing this bullshit. If this was my team, I would be lighting fires outside the coach's house. I'd be like, you dumb motherfucker, we could be going undefeated. Get the best fucking defense in the country, and you got your fans, dumbass fans out here, wearing, let's punt more shirts in the crowd. What the fuck are we talking about?
First off, Iowa wins off of ball placement. If they continue inside that 20, that is how they win games. Because it just takes one little frazzled play, and the whole momentum has shifted.
Oh, I agree. I would love if we could somehow, Mike, on our PFF account, go back and see how many touchdowns, drives they've had that have started on the their side of the 50.
Oh, I'm sure.
I bet it's like fucking 1 or 2. Because there's so many games. What's the big game they won last year where they had to get a punt return? They pinned the team deep, and they got a big punt return to get them down to the 20. They kicked a field goal, and they won. That's how they're winning games. Their offense is atrocious. Atrocious.
Yeah, it's all special teams. Special teams and defense.
Yeah, they picked the two sides of the ball win a majority of your games. They fucked up on the second part.
They're the team that won their side of the conference last year, right?
Say that again?
They won their side of the conference last year to play Michigan?
Yeah, it's not hard to do.
Okay.
It wasn't hard to do in the West. But
that wasn't the point I'm making. The point I'm making is when I'm watching the Michigan game, that first quarter, their defense is going toe-to-toe with the national champions. And my point is, I don't care how good your defense is, you can't keep continuing to give good teams possessions on your side of the 50. All they need is one fucking play to score. They throw it deep one time, your guy falls down or something, and you score a touchdown. And at that point, if your team's down by 7, it feels like you're down by 30. If they get down by 2 possessions ever, they lose. They can't come back from that.
And going into their ceiling and floor, they couldn't draft an easier schedule. Illinois State, Iowa State, Troy, Minnesota, at Ohio State, versus Washington, home against Washington, at Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin, UCLA, Maryland, and then Nebraska. For a team like Iowa that has one of the best defenses in the country, and your offense just subpar to terrible most years, where this year I think you're going to be closer to that average mark. I think they dominate a lot of these fucking games. Like Ohio State being the one loss, I'm not giving them credit
On
for.
paper, it's not going to look like dominate. They're going to win by fucking 3 points, 7, something like that.
Against teams like Washington and Nebraska and Wisconsin, maybe, but the rest of them, I think they were multiple point wins.
I don't know, man. Like, if you go back and look at their schedule last year, like,
Yeah, but that was last year, though. Like, I actually have faith that this offense is going to go in the right direction.
but personally, we were talking about earlier, I think it's going to go in the right direction, but it's not going to go much, and their fans don't care. So it's like, what is the point?
I mean, their fans don't care unless they're holding teams down to below 7. That's their goal.
But I think,
Well, I mean, wouldn't it be yours?
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to score more than 10.
Or you hold them to 7 and you
agreed, but-
lose. Talk about a fan base turning on you. That'd be it.
Yeah.
But I think that's the benefit of why their fans embrace it, is because they haven't really lost a game where that's the point yet. But it's coming.
Yeah.
And this could be the year. That being said, there's a lot of teams on this schedule that are going to have pretty good offenses, in my opinion, that could give them a fucking tough shake. That being said, I have their ceiling at 9-3. I don't think this is the year they get back to the 10-win mark.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
I think
Who are they
they're
losing to?
Ohio State,
Yeah.
Wisconsin, with their offensive pickup on quarterback. I think Tyler Van Dyke really
They're giving
switches
Tyler
that.
Van Dinkle way too much
I
fucking
think
credit.
I think he got a really bad rap at Miami. Like, there was games, in my opinion, where if he started, I'll die on this grave. If he starts at Florida State game, he wins the game for them. I think that was a dumb decision. I think that everyone got sucked up and him giving too many turnovers. But you play a game where it's close and you have no offensive production and you lose. He comes in the last drive of the game and you see a couple first downs and some passes being completed. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I really do. Wisconsin has a pretty good defense. Their offense is going to be better with him. I think they're going to give Iowa some trouble. I think Ohio State's going to give Iowa a fuck ton of trouble. I think that could be a blow it open type of game because, in my opinion, a blow it open type game could be 21-3. Like that's all it takes. These guys aren't scoring. Like I don't care who they added on offense. Washington, a lot of people are sleeping on them. I'm telling you, their quarterback is really fucking good. Like really good. I'm telling you right now, there's 90% of teams that would want that quarterback. Okay? I watched what he did at Mississippi State. Last year, he didn't do anything because their coach is retarded and they only let him throw the ball 12 times a game. When you're Mike Leach and you open it up and you let him throw 40 and he throws for career passing records in the SEC, Washington's going to open it up and let him throw it. I think that, again, that's another game you could lose like 17-3, 17-6. I don't think their offense is getting good. So I think those two, I think Ohio State's a guaranteed loss. Washington's a potential loss. Wisconsin is a potential loss. Nebraska, in my opinion, is a potential loss. But a lot of these games, like even Michigan State, I think when you have an offense that can't score, you just let teams hang around. And yes, you can go 10-2 when everything goes right like last year. But they are definitely able to lose a game and only give up 14 points. Like I don't believe in it. I hear every year their offense gets better and they don't prove it. So until I see them have a average season of averaging more than 20. Dude, you name me another fucking team in the country that has an over-unders that we bet on last year of 24. 24? I thought that was per team. Like 24. And it hit for like fucking 11 out of 12 games. It was insane. So their offense being a little bit better, what is that? Over under 28? They kick another field goal? Like, I don't get it. So, yes, ceiling 9-3. I don't see the same stuff bouncing their way this year. They want to, like I said, punt returns and pinning teams deep. I think some of these teams we're sleeping on the schedule, and I am not on the Iowa train. And people get on the train because of their stadium, the pageantry, and this top-notch defense. But at some point, your offense has got to score fucking points. And I don't see 9-3 being crazy. I mean, 9-3 happens a lot for this team. Now, 10-2 last year, that's nice, right? That's nice. But some of these teams are going to have better offenses. Like Wisconsin's going to be a better team than last year. Nebraska's going to be a better team than last year. Ohio State is going to be, in my opinion, a better team than last year. So
They spent $18 million. Better.
Yeah. They're going to have to step up. Well, at least Ohio State's paying players. Iowa's got to go sell some corn or something. What the fuck they're doing? They don't add anybody on offense. I mean, Jesus Christ. We've got a quarterback that looks like he couldn't start anywhere else in the country. So, Mike, go ahead.
I have their ceiling at 11-1. I think this is a team that, with a lightweight schedule, can sneak their way into the conference championship game. Like, defensively alone, I think they could shut out over half of the teams on this schedule. So I don't think they have to worry too much about their offense. Granted, I do think on paper their offense is better. I think they hired a new offensive coordinator this year. I don't think it's the dude's son anymore.
Nope.
So, like, they might actually get something moving. And I think a
I'll
step in the right
it.
direction is just them scoring like 18 points a game.
I still think it's a stretch. Like, I
I
still
think it's kind of a big need offensive coordinator too.
I don't care if they hire Chip Kelly. Like, I don't care. Like, they don't have the fucking players. Not to mention, I personally believe that their coach is one of those defensive coaches that goes, hey, slow down, don't go fast. We need to milk the clock. We can win playing defense. So that being said, I don't care who they bring in. He's going to be looking down there and go, whoa, 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 whoa. We're getting too aggressive. Don't throw it. Run it. We're up. Now, in my opinion, when you do shit like that and you play a team like Washington, what if they fucking take a punt return back? Like, it just, or you scoop and score, or a pick six. Like, there's so many things that can happen when you cannot score. Like, a team like Washington, in my opinion, could jump up and be, like, up by 14 points, and it'd be, like, 14-3, 14-0, like, through the third quarter, and then all of a sudden it's, like, an insurmountable lead with your offense. Like, that is where I'm getting that 9-3 from.
Shadley, what do you got your ceiling at? You agree with me?
I do. I have their ceiling at 11-1 because, I mean, it's exactly what we talked about the other day. Like, I do think that I was going to be playing in the Big Ten championship game again. I really do. Because I think that these big boys are just going to beat up on each other, and a one-loss Iowa team will be sitting number 2 in the conference.
And I just see, as a Big Ten fan, I think that'd be the worst case scenario for the Big Ten if this team makes the college ball playoff.
I agree with you there, just for the fact, like,
the
Big Ten championship game has been the most underwhelming game during that time of football, in my opinion, for all sports. You finally open it up. Anyone can play. You added some high-powered teams like Oregon in there. This is the thing you don't want to see is an Iowa team that, if they haven't fixed their offense, is still struggling, going up against one of the powerhouses of Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, whoever.
Well, I agree with you there. I'm not worried about the conference championship tune-in, like, of Iowa somehow sneaking in. Because in your situation, 11-1, yes, they could sneak in. But what I'm worried about is an 11-1, which would be 11-2, losing the conference championship. Somehow, which they, at that point, they're guaranteed to make the playoff. And then what about the teams like in the SEC or the ACC where you've got, like, for example, I'll just use SEC because that's what I know. Let's say God forbid, Texas wins the SEC. So there's a chance where you have Georgia and Alabama possibly sitting there as a high-ranked seed. And all of a sudden you have an Iowa Hawkeyes playing against somebody like fucking Georgia who could beat the fucking brakes off of them. Like, I don't care how good their defense is. It'll look like the Michigan game last year. Like, I just don't think that's good for the Big Ten.
That's very possible, but imagine the publicity the Big Ten's going to get if Iowa goes in and say they, in the playoffs, they play a Georgia or an Alabama, and they hold them under, 28, 21 points? If they hold them.
But my thing is,
they make it a game.
My thing is,
their offense, their offense concerns me. Yes, Cade McNamara. I loved the guy when he played at Michigan. He's kind of like an older Brady, where it's timing route. Obviously, I'm not comparing him to Brady, but just to kind of get that picture in your head. but another concern with Cade McNamara is he has not played a full season in his entire collegiate career, where he's been the sole starter.
Yeah, and I mean,
And like that's, I mean, obviously it's a big concern. Which, by the way, the new offensive coordinator is Tim Lester. He's quarterback coach at Purdue in 2015. He was the head coach there at Western.
Oh yeah,
And then and then he just left Green Bay.
Okay, Green Bay. You know, that's a pretty high power offense. Maybe he's bringing something to the table.
Well, but that's the thing. So I should say he was he was a senior analyst for the Packers, so he was right there with Matt LaFleur the whole time, though. So you know, he could just be learning tricks of the trade when it comes to the offense.
now
But I think that Iowa's defense is just far too good. I have them actually going 10-2. That's what my gut says.
Now, just going back to the college football playoff situation, because we're talking about making it a game. I think if Georgia or Alabama scores 28 points, it's not even a game. I think it'll be like 28-10. Like, it won't be a game, and it'll be 10 points late. Like, I just don't see a way where this offense is good enough to score against actual teams that play. Like, because you see, for example, Georgia, who won the national championship, and we were talking about they have one of the best defenses ever. They still had a pretty decent offense. I mean, they were still scoring 28, 35 points a game. So I don't know. On their schedule, a lot of these teams are better than last year.
I mean, I disagree on that point. I think a lot of these teams in the Big Ten are worse than they were last year.
So you think Nebraska, Wisconsin, are worse than last year?
Okay, you're picking two teams. Let's look at the whole schedule. Washington, worse than last year.
Okay,
Minnesota, worse than last year.
Mike.
Minnesota got a little better.
Mike.
Michigan State, worse than last year. Northwestern,
No,
still bad.
hold
UCLA,
on.
worse
Hold
than
on.
last
No,
year.
hold
Maryland,
on.
worse than last year.
Michigan State got better.
Yes, Michigan State's
got better.
definitely got better.
Got better from what? Being dog shit? They're still bad.
They had a bad situation at coach, okay, and then all that stuff
don't
behind
mind,
the
baby.
scenes. Now,
Allegedly.
allegedly, yes, it was definitely entrapment. We won't get about that. But Washington, yes, I mean that's like saying fucking Georgia's not going to be as good as last year. Like the teams are good. Washington played in the national championship.
Yeah,
yes,
they
they're
lost
not
their
gonna-
coach and like 95% of their players.
Dude, Washington is going to be better than you think. Their offense is still going to be good.
No.
Like Mike.
Moving on to the next team. If Iowa's offense is decent, 11-1. If their offense can't figure it the fuck out, their floor 8-4.
Okay, my floor is 7-5.
Hey, my floor's 8-4. Look at us, Mikey.
There we go. Twinning.
That's okay. I hope they reach that 7-5 so I can come back and just call you out at the end of the season, Mike.
Maryland, we can run through them real quick.
Dog water.
Oh, man.
Bad. Lost their quarterback. They have no identity on offense as far as I'm concerned. Talia Tagovailoa wasn't ever a great QB, but knew that system in and out by the back of his hand.
God
Motherfucker
damn,
was
you're hot,
bred
Mike.
there.
Mike is smoking dog
And-
crap with this ceiling right here.
My ceiling for them is 8-4.
Holy. Oh, my goodness.
But let me just finish the statement. My floor for them is 3-9.
Okay, way to take a stab in the dark there. Just saying every possibility.
They did not get that many benefits from this schedule. I mean, opening up UConn, Michigan State, Virginia, Villanova. They could easily start 4-0, in my opinion. They can start
I
4-0.
forget Villanova has a football team.
Dude,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Virginia's bad. UConn's bad. Villanova's bad. Michigan State is still one of the more bottom tier Big Ten
But I
teams. I don't
think
care what the
Maryland
fuck
is
you
gonna
guys
be
say.
bad.
Like, go fuck yourselves. They're still not good.
Like, I don't. There's
I'm
no
not
way in
like that.
hell I can chalk up Michigan State as a guaranteed win.
I'm not saying it's guaranteed win. I'm saying they
No,
could
I'm
go
with you. I'm with
4-0.
you.
Then you got at Indiana, who
Which
we
I
just
don't
talked about.
think is a guaranteed win. Like, where are you getting 8?
Where are you saying guaranteed
Because I'm trying to
wins?
get to your 8-4. Name out your 8 wins.
I think they could start out 6-0, right?
Okay.
I think they could sneak a win against USC and Minnesota.
Jesus Christ.
Those are two games I can see as a potential win, and that's if the quarterback they have coming out is good. I don't think he is.
He's not.
Yeah, I don't think he is. So 8-4 is my ceiling. 3-9 is the floor because they have one of the easiest first 6 games that I've seen so far since we're doing this show. I think they have one of the tougher 6-game stretches at the end.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and humble Maryland fans after you said ceiling 8-4. I got their ceiling at 5-7. I don't think they make a bowl game. Like, I don't.
Same.
I just look at the schedule, and every team on it, outside of a couple, is better than them, like talent-wise too.
I don't think that's why my floor is 3-9. Like,
Well, Mike, that's 8-4 and 3-9 is a huge swing. That anyone could
yeah,
go up
brother,
there.
they
and
got
do
a lot
that.
of coin tosses, man.
Holy shit, Shelly, what do you have for their ceiling?
So for their ceiling, I also have them at 5 and 7. Yeah, I mean, if this quarterback, I don't remember his freaking name. It's funny. I was reading a quarterback ranking.
MJ
of like
Morris.
MJ Morris. Okay, cool. Nice to meet you. It like they did like a Big Ten quarterback ranking and everything, and it started off with Maryland, and they said flat out, no question, this is going to be the worst quarterback room of the Big Ten.
I agree, and I have their floor at 3-9, Mike, but I have 5 and 7 to 3 and 9. Like it's a 2-game
I have
split.
their floor at 2 and 10.
I just think
I
there's
was
enough
thinking about
bad-
it because, in my opinion, I understand that Virginia's a bad team,
I was about to say, Virginia is one of the teams we
But-
can talk about might be the worst in football.
but Virginia at the end of the season,
They looked better.
they looked significantly better. And I think the farther they get away from that tragedy and they're starting to focus on football and rebuilding, because Virginia used to be a good program. So I think that's a game where you're looking at it, and that could be easily a game, in my opinion, to get you to that 2 and 10, because you'd beat UConn and
That
Villanova.
could just be a big staple game for Virginia too.
Oh,
Like they could be
100%.
going into that game super hyped.
Yeah, if
I
they
agree.
drop
Could be
it
a
to
Big Ten
Virginia, then I'll
opponent.
be all on
Yeah.
board with you. That floor is hitting.
Okay, let's go to the next team. Purdue. You missed Purdue. The Boilermakers. All right, Mike, go ahead.
All right, ceiling 8 and 4. Floor 4 and 8.
God damn, you gave me no time to look at this. All right, Chadley, go ahead.
Purdue, right? I have their ceiling 5 and 7, and dude, I have their floor at 2 and 10.
Wow. Yeah.
They have a tough schedule.
It's
Looking
funny.
at it again, like,
Mikey and I were talking about this. Like they have a bye week after week 1.
yeah,
That's
it's one of the
rough.
They have
weirdest
to
things
play
I've
the
ever
rest
fucking
of
seen.
this season.
Wow. Yeah, I agree
They
with
have to play
you.
the rest of this season.
I agree with you.
Like, that's why my gut says 3 and 9.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know.
not. There's no way they're getting to a fucking bowl game like with 8 and 4. Like Indiana State, they could win that.
Yep.
I think that's a guaranteed win. That's the only one on the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. They played literally every hard team that they could think of in the Big Ten and then grabbed some more tough guys. Like Notre Dame, tough. Oregon State, bad. Don't think it's a guaranteed win.
I don't think they're bad. I just don't think they're as good as last year.
Yeah. Then you got Nebraska,
Yeah.
Wisconsin, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, Indiana. Like, they didn't get any benefits of the schedule. They avoided what? Michigan? Outside of that, they
Yeah.
played every other top
Totally.
team. Iowa. Like, it's just a bad team that's just going to get beat up on.
Yeah, I think that I have their floor at 2 and 10.
Yeah.
Is that what you have, Chadley?
Yep. Yeah, I've got their floor at 2 and 10.
Mike has their floor.
I think
at
that
4
their
and 8.
two guarantees
I
are
have
Indiana
4 and 8.
State and Northwestern. I think
Yeah.
those are 2 guaranteed wins.
I agree. Mike has.
I have 4 and 8 because I like Purdue. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but God, this team is bad.
Oh, wait. Hold up. So they've got that bye week in week 1.
Yep.
So August 31st to September 14th is the next game.
No.
Also looking the
Oh,
Oregon
Mike
to
is in
Northwestern
Yeah, I
Northwestern
didn't
game.
fuck with the schedules.
Okay.
No, I'm looking online.
No, I know. I agree with you. I'm saying Mike didn't update our schedule.
It's too much work.
Yeah, but so then the Oregon to Northwestern game, Oregon they have October 18th, Northwestern
didn't see
November
Oregon.
2nd. So that, and they're both home, so they get to stay home for like a freaking month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 and 10. 2 and 10 floor.
That's weird. That's just a
Uh,
weird. Just they have like 2 bye weeks.
yeah.
In,
Let's go
in the
Rutgers.
schedule. Oh, Rutgers.
The old Rutgers. All right, Mike, you're high, and I'm take the lead.
All right, I got a 9 and 3 ceiling for them. I'm big on Rutgers. I think they're one of the better slept on teams in the Big Ten. A lot of teams usually just think they can always look over them. I think this team has been building something very slowly and methodically. I think on the ground game, they're kind of scary. And schedule-wise, not the craziest. Howard, Akron, at Virginia Tech's their first tough matchup, and I think that's a very winnable game. With it being at Virginia Tech, though, kind of scary. That's a game I'll probably be tuning into. Then they got Washington, who I think is just trash.
I can't believe you're so low, Washington.
I know.
Damn, dude. When they come out here and win like 8-9 games, they're gonna fucking fool you.
Washington has pretty much the same questions that Michigan does.
Yeah, I mean,
Worse.
Why are they getting such an awful rap?
I know.
Bad.
No, it's
They're
because of
bad.
people like Mike who don't know anything about him. Like their quarterback, Mike, that
Fuck Washington.
fucking
They're bad.
really good.
Michael Penix sucks. I don't care. They're fucking awful.
Michael Penix,
Overrated
Jesus
ass
Christ.
team. Overrated in the first place.
I can't
Didn't
wait
belong.
to. Okay, I'll make you a bet when we get to their
That's fine.
schedule.
That's fine. At Nebraska versus Wisconsin, UCLA, USC, like Minnesota, Maryland, Illinois, Michigan State. I think a lot of games are going to be close, like teams that are near Rutgers. But I think I give Rutgers the edge in a lot of these matchups. Like their ceiling for me is 9-3. I really like what they've been doing. They left a sour taste in my mouth in the bowl game last year.
It's a bowl game.
Yeah, it was a bowl game. We had a lot of people missing. We were playing like our third string quarterback, but I really like this Rutgers team.
I have their ceiling at 8-4. Like Howard, Akron, those are guaranteed. I think UCLA, USC, they could beat. Minnesota, they could beat. Maryland, Illinois, Michigan State. I'm not willing to get on the Virginia Tech board with you. At Virginia Tech, with that environment, I don't think this Rutgers team is to that.
No,
point
and I'm
yet.
not saying either team wins that game. I do think it'll be a good game. I'll be tuning
I think-
into because I like both teams.
Like, I honestly think Washington is significantly better than you are giving them credit for, and I don't think that's a game they can win. At Nebraska, that's tough. Wisconsin, I mean, yeah, ceiling 8-4, and that's their ceiling. What do you have, Shadley?
I have their ceiling at take a look. 7-5.
Okay, I was gonna
Is what
go
I have for
there.
their ceiling.
I was gonna go there with you, but I was giving them the benefit of the doubt. The back half of their schedule is easy as fuck.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's a guaranteed win for Washington.
No.
Like against Washington at all.
I
don't
would
think
argue
that's guaranteed.
Washington is way better on paper.
Yeah. And then I think they'll start out. They'll win their first 3 games. But I think out of the first 6, I think they'll wind up being 3-3.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. They still won somewhere between the Virginia Tech, Washington, Nebraska, and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, give us your floor. I'm looking at it, and I can't wait for you to debut this shit.
6-6.
Insane. For a floor, you don't think there's any way they can get lower than that?
No, I think their back half of the schedule is just too easy. I think they're the better team in every single one of those matchups on the back. The front scares me a little bit, but I do think they can pull away at least one out of those 4 games that you guys were talking about with Wisconsin, Nebraska, Washington, and Virginia Tech. I think they pull at least one out of that 4-week stretch, and then I think they could potentially even go undefeated on the back.
Yeah,
I think at
potentially.
USC is going to be that tough game.
I think the win for this team is making a bowl game. Like, I don't know how you have their.
It'd be huge.
I don't know how you have like a guaranteed bowl game for this team.
I do.
I'm
I think
just
they
gonna
beat
be
down a lot of
honest.
these back half teams.
I'm gonna be honest. I have their floor 4-8. I do. There's a lot of the front half of their schedule. They could lose all 4 of those. They could. The VTech, Washington, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Howard, and Akron are 2 wins. They could lose to UCLA. They could lose to USC. So they still only have 2 wins. So they've got to split 2 out of the Minnesota, Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan State to get to 4. I think there's a possibility that can happen.
I think you're sleeping on Scarlet Knights.
I'm not saying they're going 4-8. I'm just saying that's a possibility.
I don't think there's
Like,
a
I think
chance.
you sleep on a lot of these Big Ten teams. Like, Rutgers is not to a point where somebody like Michigan State is a guaranteed win. I'm not there yet. Or a UCLA or a USC. Like you could slip up and get embarrassed by somebody USC.
Yeah, so at USC, I have as one of their tough matchups,
I think you
especially
could
with it
slip
being
up.
at USC.
I think you could
Yeah.
slip up and get embarrassed by UCLA. Like, I think there's a
I
possibility.
don't
of
know if
that
that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be an embarrassment. I can see them losing, but I don't see it being an embarrassment.
Well, I meant like,
Um,
Mike, you just got to hit. You just got to hit the minimize button. Go
yeah.
ahead.
But yeah,
What is your floor?
I've got their floor 4-8.
Haters.
I've got their floor 4-8. It's not so much a hater, man, because honestly, my gut says they're going to go 6-6. What I like about this Rutgers team is obviously Greg Schiano. I mean,
Yep, I agree.
I love Greg Schiano.
Couldn't have a better
I mean,
coach.
You know, he wasn't phenomenal in the NFL, but college is his spot, kind of thing. I think he's been recruiting well. He's been pulling a lot of local New Jersey guys, a lot of 4-stars, away from those SEC and other Big Ten schools. And then, yeah, it's just Rutgers. They're on the up and up. They're also I think they're one of the most senior teams in the Big Ten too, if I'm not mistaken. I have them going 3-1 in their first 4 games. I think they're losing to Washington. I think they're losing to Nebraska. And then they're going to go on a little 3-game tear beating Wisconsin, UCLA, USC.
Okay.
And then it's just going to be kind of rough. It's going to be a rough stretch. I mean, I know a lot of, we're not high. Not a lot of people are high on Minnesota or Illinois, but I think that those are going to be some tough games.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mike, next team. Stop checking your fucking baseball bets.
Pretty sure they all lost.
Okay, Michigan State. Go ahead and give us your ceiling, Mike.
Ceiling is 6-6. They're praying for a bowl game. No,
All right.
no rebuttal? All right, cool. Awesome. All
Go
right.
ahead, Chadley.
Yeah. I have Michigan State. I have their ceiling at 5-7.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
have
like to
agree
hear
with
that. I like to hear that.
5-7. Like, I don't see them making the bowl game.
Yeah.
But I think 5-7 would be a great season for them to get forward.
Yeah, I do. I think so. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Nate Carter being the first 1,000-yard back since Kenneth Walker III, right? They bolstered their O-line in freaking the portal and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this new head coach is kind of bringing back some culture and, bringing in an actual spring game again. And, actually, I've been reading a lot from and hearing a lot from Michigan State fans. A lot of my buddies are, and they really like this new head coach. He's bringing in a caring culture, I guess is kind of how some of them put it.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely they're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But I have their floor at 2-10.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, they can like the coach all they want, but when he gets fired after going 2-10.
No, I don't think a 2-10 would fire this guy. Like, you can't, not going to fire him if his year run. I mean, like,
No,
the
they
team
won't.
is in shambles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, they don't have an easy
I have the
schedule.
floor at 3-9.
Okay.
3-9. Yeah, they have a very fucking rough schedule.
I think the FAU game week 1 is weird.
Yeah, I
Like, I think
think
it's-
FAU could win that game.
I didn't know how to feel about that. Yeah, I didn't know how to feel about that. But I mean, they better beat Prairie View, wherever the hell they're
Yeah,
from.
like I have
Sorry
their
to
2
Prairie View
guaranteed wins, and the only guaranteed wins on here is Prairie View and Boston College.
See, oh, fuck,
Yeah, I have
no.
a guarantee for Maryland too. I have a guarantee for Maryland.
Really? So I had a
Yeah.
potential loss to FAU. When I get to my 2 wins, I have them beating Maryland, beating Prairie View. Those were the
Yeah,
2
Illinois.
wins. No, those are like my 2 wins I think they could have. And yes, Illinois. That is how they're getting to the 2, I think, right there. Throw in somebody like Purdue maybe to be an upset. I can see that. Those 4 games are going to be really important for them. FAU is just a weird fucking matchup because FAU is going to be so hyped up to go into Michigan State.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to
Yeah,
talk about that
my
4-game
gut
stretch real
tells me-
quick. Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, and Michigan.
Yeah, the team might be
Yeah,
fucking in
that's
the
rough.
hospital.
Fuck, dude.
It's going to be rough.
I don't think there's a harder stretch in America than that. That's why.
No, yeah, that's not going to be fun.
All right, Mike. You had floor 2-10. Shadley, did you say your floor?
I have
You
the floor
said
at
3 and
3-9.
9. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. My gut tells me they're going to go 4-8. But I like the way that Michigan State's trending. I actually turned off that Michigan State game after the first quarter last year
Yeah,
because it was just
so bad.
it wasn't even fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, 49-0 in your own stadium is a little rough.
Moving on over to UCLA. I don't know what's up with some of these teams.
I don't
in
know
the
what's
Big
up
Ten
with you and these ceilings.
in the Western side, trying to pick up LSU early.
They do that a lot, though. LSU does that a lot. They play out west a lot. But
They're playing at LSU.
Before you even go into it, because I know we're running out of time, we need to speed this up. But Mike, I could pull a kid from the street and say, "Hey, give me the largest fucking ceiling and floor ever." That is you on some of these teams. Go ahead, tell us what your ceiling is.
7-5.
You don't make any aggressive picks.
Get out of here.
7-5, dude. I see 5-7. This team's not making a fucking bowl game. Are you kidding me?
I am at 4-8.
I agree. Hawaii is bad, and I think they beat them. But then you look at some of these other teams. I don't think they're beating Indiana. I don't think they're going to beat LSU.
I don't think so either.
I don't think they're beating Oregon. They're not beating Penn State. Minnesota's winnable. I think Rutgers is an interesting game. Nebraska, they're not beating. Iowa, they're not beating. Washington, they're not beating. USC, in my opinion, it's weird. It's a rivalry game. You never know what happens. Fresno State's no fucking cakewalk. Like, this is a tough schedule for UCLA. Like, 7-5?
Mm-hmm.
Who's their 7
And
wins?
they haven't been recruiting well in the last 3 years. They relied on the portal. Chip Kelly was awful as a head coach. Could not recruit worth a damn. And, I mean, like, how are you going to sit there and play with just this stuff? It's like if the Sandlot was even worse, you know?
Yeah.
Look, my 7 for them,
Hawaii. This is a feel-bad story for the
Hawaii, Indiana, Minnesota, Fresno State, and then I have them being beating USC, Washington, Nebraska.
God,
those teams aren't
damn.
that good, and Nebraska's the one team I'm bigger on.
Dude, you
But
are
if
sleeping
Nebraska
on
doesn't
Washington.
meet their fucking ends, I think UCLA could contend with them.
I think
I don't
Washington-
think it happens. I
think Washington could fucking steamroll them.
Disagree.
I think Washington will play their second string.
Yeah, I think in the fourth quarter, the second string's playing. I think you're sleeping on it. I'm going to tell you right now, my floor is 1 win. 1 win.
That's mine.
One win. And my 1 win is because, and this is only because Hawaii's been trending down. Like, I think Hawaii is a guaranteed win. In the past, I'm like, oh, a mainland team going to Hawaii, they're fucked. But Hawaii's been so bad. Fresno State is so much better than people give credit for. I don't think they win that. Like, I think the floor could be 1-11.
Yeah, that was my exact floor. That's my gut says 3-9.
Yeah, for their like actual projected winning.
projected 4-8.
Like my 3-9 that I think they're going to go is Hawaii, Fresno State. They would have to win that game to even get to this 3-9. Fresno State and Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't see a world where they beat like the last 6 games. They could go over 100%.
God, that'd be good to see.
It'd be awesome. I hate UCLA. Go to Nebraska. Did we talk about the Gophers? We talked about Minnesota, right?
No,
Mike skipped over them?
No, we didn't talk about.
Okay, Minnesota, Mike, go ahead.
Bad team, not the easiest of schedules. Ceiling 6-6.
Shadley?
I have. Sorry, I flipped the page on myself. I have Minnesota. I have their ceiling at 6-6. Floor at 4-8. I mean, I love Ethan. What's his name? Ethan Kaliakmanis. I like him kind of as a quarterback. Like, he's not bad. He's not good. I mean, in 23 games, he's got 2,800 passing yards and 17 touchdowns. That kind of blew my mind.
Yep. I agree with you guys.
Really changing numbers.
We're agreeing on something here. 6-6. Like, I think that's a good ceiling for them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think his team's
I
good.
think,
Mike,
I
read
think
the
that
floor.
they will be.
My floor for them is
4-8.
3-9.
4-8.
You said
I
4-8.
don't think. I don't think they're gonna
Hold on, Mike.
waiver too many.
Yeah, I'll go 4-8. 4-8. Okay, go ahead. Next, we talked about USC already, right? We're in Nebraska now.
I don't think we talked about USC, but we talked about them enough in other
Yeah.
people's shit. We can just quickly go for their
Yeah.
ceiling.
Okay.
So let's
Nebraska.
just do that real quick. Ceiling for USC, I have 8-4. Floor being 6-6.
Okay. Shadley.
I've got 9-3 as their ceiling and 6-6 as their floor.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm sorry, USC fans. Ceiling is 6-6. I think this is going
Wow.
to be the worst Lincoln Riley team he's ever coached, personally.
Yeah, that's very possible.
And there's a lot of games. What did they go last year?
They lost 5 games.
Yeah, with a Heisman Trophy quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6-6 ceiling. Go ahead and write it off. Big Ten. I mean, floor. If I'm gonna be honest with you, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 and 8 is the floor. I think this puts him on the hot seat. I think a 4 and 8 floor they fire him. What do you have as the floor, Mike?
I have 6-6 as the floor. I think they could still squeak by with a bowl game. It's just like their offense, I feel like even with not being as good as past teams, Lincoln Riley being who Lincoln Riley is, will find a way to have an offense that can just outscore some of these guys. Their defense is supposed to be getting a little bit better, but, I mean, they still play some fucking tough games.
I'm curious what their over-under is.
For wins,
Yeah.
I think it was 6.5.
Okay, Vegas
It was
smart.
6.5 or 7.5.
7.5, I'm hitting the under every day. But Shadley, who do you have, or what do you have for their ceiling and floor?
So ceiling, I've got 9-3, and then floor, I have 6-6.
All right, boys.
Yeah.
Hot take on USC for me again. Nebraska. Go ahead, Mike.
Ceiling I got for them 8-4. Not the toughest of schedules. I mean, they do. I see here Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa. Outside of that, though, not the craziest schedules. Versus Colorado will be interesting week 2.
A game they should have won last year, in my opinion, with
Yeah.
some turnovers.
And I think I think both teams have gotten better, and that'll be the game that I'll be using to judge Colorado on the rest of the season. Is how good, quote unquote,
I think
they got
fucking
now
terrible.
that they addressed the trenches. I know you're super down on
Oh,
them.
yeah.
I'm just
87.
not big.
They didn't do so. This is my whole thing. Do you know if you go back and look? I'm sorry, you started this rant when you talked about him, Mike. You should have not called out.
I was
Leak.
hoping you were just not gonna
No.
address it.
Fucking 15th ranked team in college football game for a 4-win fucking football team. Not to mention
Yeah, they had the number 100th ranked offense last year.
I know their defense was 120 out of 128. Okay, 120 out of 128. They added no defensive transfers that are going to start for them. They're not fucking better. They're worse than last year. They are worse than last year. I'm telling you, they might win another game than last year, make it look like they're better, but on paper, they are worse than last year. So, yeah, let's get them the fuck off here. Fuck them. Let's get back to Nebraska. I had their ceiling. I don't know if it's crazy, but I have a ceiling as 9-3. I do. What do you have, Shadley?
Well, I have their ceiling at 5-7. I'm not that high on Nebraska. I mean, I think that they're going to benefit from some of these home games, but I have their ceiling at 5-7.
Yeah, I mean, Nebraska to me is just a team that they get overhyped every year. They're the Texas A&Ms, they're the Penn States.
Well-
They get a lot of hype in the Big Ten, never to be contenders, but hey, they're moving in the right direction. They're trying to be contenders. And
But they
just
are
never
moving
got
in the right
there.
direction, in my opinion, with Matt Roll.
I don't think they ever just really got there. And I think they do have the guys now to where they're all young. So I think they have the potential. I just don't see them being there yet. But I do think
and
they're
that's the
going in
thing.
the right direction.
They were on their way up. They were on their way up with Alex Martinez at quarterback. But where's he at now? Isn't he in the UFL?
Probably. I haven't heard of the guy.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to the NFL, I haven't heard of him.
Exactly, and that was one of their better quarterbacks in the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just trending in the right
I
direction.
don't-
There's a lot of teams on this schedule that I think they could win. Like, the first 6 games to me are winnable. Like, I know Mike is highlighting Rutgers, but like Nebraska's defense is good. Like they're really good. And I think it gets slept on. And I know we're talking about the Iowa situation, but the difference in my opinion is like Nebraska was able to move the ball last year. They just whenever they had a drive going, they fucking turned it over. I mean, in the Colorado game, in my opinion, they should have won. They fumbled like 3 times in a row on quarterback center exchange. Like, what the fuck? Does the quarterback not wear glasses? Can you not see it? He just drops the ball. It's weird. So I think there's a lot of games like that where they can, you know, switch that to the win column. And that's where I'm getting that. Like, I'm saying Sea Lake 9-3, but I have the floor at 5-7.
Yeah, my floor is at 5-7 for him. I want to hear yours
My
if your
floor's
ceiling's
3-9.
5-7.
He's at
3-9.
That's tough.
I don't like this Nebraska team. I don't.
All right, Mike, next one.
Matt Rule is great. I think he's starting to recruit a little better, but it's not looking good for Husker Nation.
Yeah. So Washington, I have a ceiling of 8-4. Pretty easy schedule for them outside of like a 3-week stretch with Rutgers, Michigan, and Iowa. USC and Penn State near the end, and then Oregon at
How
the
are
very
you
back end.
dogging on them?
I just
I
don't
think they're
think they're
ceiling at 8-4.
Yeah, because I think they play either bottom tier talent or good teams. I think they lose to every good team.
They played Michigan, Penn State, and Oregon.
3 losses.
I don't know. I think this team could somehow sneak out a win.
I think they're gonna have a decent year on paper because they play a lot of dog shit teams and they're gonna beat those dog shit teams. I think they get handed it to them against every better team.
So I'm significantly higher than them. I think just, you know, you keep saying they lost a lot of talent. They may have. The coach was recruiting well there. The new coach brings in the quarterback. I have their ceiling at 10-2. I do. Do I think they're going to go 10-2? I don't know if they can reach that. But, yeah, there's a world they can make it happen. Like, there's games that I'm looking at in here. Like, I want to say it. Michigan's kind of in the same boat of, like, I don't know how to feel. Michigan has way better talent, but Washington has at home. It's a weird game. I think on the road at Iowa is super winnable. I'm way higher on this Washington offense, and I just think that if they can somehow get some scores early, it'll make it too big for Iowa to come back. That's how they're getting to the 10-2. Like USC, UCLA, I think they can win those. I think Penn State's even winnable. I just it's for when I say that, if Penn State comes out here and it's a night game, white out, I don't know if Washington can handle that. But if it's just like some
I
fucking
don't know if
Big
you can
Ten
either.
noon game, I think they might be able to sneak away with a win there. But Oregon's the only one that I kind of look on here, and I'm like, yeah, it's not happening, even though it's a rivalry game. And I want to be there with Michigan. It's just weird. I just want to see Michigan in the regular season go on the road to Washington. When I look at the schedule, I know you're high on Rutgers, but it's really, in my opinion, their first big game. So I think they're going to try to, like, they're going to be so hyped up. It's going to be a close game. So I don't know how to feel about that one. So, Shadley, what do you have for their ceiling?
I have their ceiling at 9-3. It's hard for me to think of Washington as just absolutely going down the shitter.
I agree.
Like Mike over here for some reason.
I think they're just
I have their ceiling at 9-3, but
no.
I also have their whoa. I don't know about.
I don't know how
TCU.
you could say that because TCU
I
had
don't know
an
how you can't draw the lines.
Washington, even before last year, was winning like 10 games every season.
Yeah.
All the way back since like 2018 when they played Alabama in the fucking national or in the playoff.
That's fine. That was before the Pac-12 imploded, before their head coach dipped out and went to
Pac-12
Alabama.
wasn't that bad. Like the last couple of years, they've actually been getting better and better, and then kind of just fell off. But Washington was also one of those teams, in my opinion, that still played some defense. Like
I think they're clawing tooth and nail for a fucking bowl game this year.
that's insane. Insane.
Wow. Yeah, I have their floor at 7-5. Like it's not.
5-7.
I don't think they're going to waive it too much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it, and
I think they start off great. I think they start off 4-0.
I'm going to tell
I
you
think
that
it's downhill from there.
I'm going to tell you that their floor is 8-4. I'm going to go aggressive. Yeah, I think it's 8-4. I think they're 8-4 to 10-2. Like, I think they're still on paper significantly better than a lot of these teams. Like, again, USC I'm not high on. Even with Washington losing their coach, I still think USC is worse.
Yeah.
Like, UCLA should be easy for them. I think they're going to handle the first four really easy, really down on Washington State. They've been getting worse every year.
I don't know, man. My Eastern Michigan Eagles. We're
Eastern
we're
Michigan?
fighting people. Yeah. That's where I'm going to school, actually.
I'm not sleeping. Like, I'm not sleeping on them as a whole. They have won some big games in the past. It's just I don't think this is one of them.
They're not doing anything in Washington.
So, all right, Mike, next one. Northwestern. You talk about the way you talk about Washington is Northwestern. Like, this is the team.
I don't see the difference.
This is number 100. Oh my god. Okay, first off, let's make a bet. What do you think Washington wins?
Like what?
What's
their
their win
projection?
total?
I'm going to go 7. 7.5 is where I'll draw the line.
So, significantly higher than what you just said.
No, my ceiling for them was 8 wins. I have projected 6-6.
Okay, then why don't you do
You
6?
said their floor is 8, so
Why
let's
don't you do
draw the
6?
line at 7.5.
Okay, I'll do that. What do you want?
I don't know. What do you want?
We'll figure it out on next podcast.
Money or an actual challenge?
No, like an actual challenge.
Okay. I'm cool for both. I'll love to watch
Big
you
Ten
eat 2
breakdown.
fucking hot chips and a fucking.
Well, I can't
in
wait
a
for
season.
you to lose week 1 at Florida. That just make me so excited. You passed over Northwestern.
It's not much to talk about Northwestern.
All right, what's our ceiling, Mike?
Ceiling 3-9, floor 1-11.
That's exactly what I've got.
Okay. Kind of feel like an idiot here, but I have their ceiling at 1-11. I'm dead serious. Like,
You have their ceiling at 1-11?
yeah, I think this could be the worst team in college football. Like, I think Miami of Ohio is better than them.
Yeah, I think so too.
No.
What's their one win? Is it Eastern?
Eastern Illinois.
Eastern Illinois, yeah.
That's it. Like, I don't think a lot of these games are going to be competitive. Like, I don't. Like, even with Illinois, I don't like.
I
know
think
you're talking
2
about
games
the
that could be
win.
sneaky competitive, though, is home against Illinois at the end. And then, honestly, I don't think Purdue's good. I think at Purdue could still be competitive.
Personally,
Yeah.
the one thing that I'll relate to is when you look in the SEC, Vanderbilt is trying to make their team better, right? They're trying. They hired a good coach. They're rebuilding their stadium. Northwestern's rebuilding their stadium. But, like, I don't really think they're doing anything to try to be good. Like, I don't. I think, like, personally, the way that college football landscape's going and making these power conferences,
Yeah, they're
I
out.
think they're going to get kicked out. Like, I'm dead serious. I think they're
Yeah.
going to get kicked out. They are so bad.
Because I guess they don't really need them for academics. The
Like,
Big Ten's got
dude,
a ton of
I
huge
remember in
academic
2020
schools.
when they beat Auburn in the bowl game, and it was like you didn't want to play Northwestern. They were fucking physical on the offensive defensive line. You were like, you did not want to play them. It's going to be a grounded pound game, and you were
Yeah,
kind
they
of
had a couple
nervous.
years in a row. I think they had a first-round offensive lineman get taken out.
But it's like,
Yeah, it was like, I think it was like 3 years.
yeah, I think they've dug themselves such a deep hole. I don't know if they can get out of it.
Yeah.
But let's go to Wisconsin. Mike is not high on them, I can see.
No, dude, they got
Well, actually,
fucking
you're a lot
Tyler.
better
They
than I
got
thought.
Tyler Van Dinkle playing quarterback who doesn't know how to play 4 quarters of fucking football. So, like, yeah, I have them going 8-4, but as a ceiling. But that's because I don't think their schedule is anything crazy. They have a bad stretch towards the back end with Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska. But besides that, like, I think their one-offs is Rutgers, and then I mean, yeah, Alabama early. I just don't think this is a good team. I just think they benefit from playing a lot of bottom tier talent in between these tough games.
So I'm going to agree with you that their schedule is somewhat easy. Okay. Outside of the big games.
Yeah.
But I still have their ceiling at 9-3. I think they're a little better getting credit for. Personally, I think you should circle Alabama. I'm really not high on them. I know we talked about this in the SEC.
Tyler Van Dyke's
And-
going to shit his fucking pants.
But it's at home for them, and it's a first-year head coach for Alabama.
Actually, I take that back. Tyler Van Dyke plays very well against good teams.
Yeah.
He shits the bed against Georgia Tech and Middle Tennessee State. Those teams terrify him.
For some reason for me, Alabama is like screaming close game. Like, I think it's going to be super close. Now, the other games, like, even like Penn State, having them at home, I don't think they're going to win that game, but it's like, they can keep it close. I think with what we were talking about with Penn State's issues on offense. But I don't think this is a bad team. I think this is a team with their coach that's trending in the right direction, for sure.
I think
Okay, go ahead.
they're freaking. So I have their ceiling at 5-7.
Holy
Strictly
fuck.
for one reason.
Tyler
And
Van
it's
Dinkle.
because of their core. No, it's their offensive philosophy that they're trying to equip over here in Camp Randall. They're out here. They're trying to shy away from the run and be more of a pass first offense, and that's not going to fly for half of the season.
Not with Tyler
In
Van
Wisconsin.
Dinkle.
It's not gonna happen. They don't have the receivers for it. They don't have the line for it.
Don't have the quarterback for it.
Mike, you're sleeping on him. Like, he's not a bad quarterback. He's not a bad
He
don't-
is
quarterback.
I don't
great
think
for
he's-
about
I
two
don't
and a half
think he's
quarters a
bad.
game.
He, in my opinion,
I
was
don't
one of
think
the
he's
top
bad.
transfer quarterbacks this year.
I'm telling you, he's going to get benched against Purdue.
He's not getting benched the entire season.
He's not getting benched. Who are they going to bench him for?
They'll find someone.
He'd do some stupid decision like fucking Miami last year and bench him and just not win big
That's because
games.
he lost us like 3 games.
I beg to differ. I so beg to differ. I mean, your defense can't give up. I mean, do you write off Georgia Tech as his problem?
Georgia Tech was his problem. That's
Really?
why we lost that game.
Your coach could have kneed and he would have won.
Yeah, I get that. That's what ultimately,
That's
that
the
was play that
delusion of Miami,
First off,
in
you're
my
going to get me heated. It's way too late to even get me heated. That play lost us the game. Tyler Van Dyke's performance the entire first 3 quarters gave us the chance that we're not winning.
Georgia Tech's better than you think, though.
They aren't terrible. We should have blown them out.
Okay.
They stayed in the game the entire time because Tyler Van Dyke makes stupid decisions,
I think it
stupid
was-
passes, and cannot
Personally-
consistently hit a guy in the short.
Personally, I'm not big on Mario Cristobal, and I think that was the easiest scapegoat for some of the losses last year. Like, I will die on the hill, like I said, that they would have won Florida State if they put him in the game earlier.
I agree because Tyler Van Dyke plays good against good opponents.
Well, you can fix the
But he
fucking
plays
sloppy
like
belly
dog
against
shit
bad
against
guys.
bad teams.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, move on.
I don't know if there's anything else to move on to. I think that was it.
Okay. Well, perfect.
Yeah.
This was a good one. It ran a little long, but we appreciate you had it on, Chadley. We'll
Yeah,
definitely
cool.
have you back on in the future. This was probably one of the most fun episodes we've had so far. So we'll have you back on
Yeah,
for
it
the
was really good
NFL
time.
ones.
Yeah, should be
And,
doing the
go from there.
AFC later this week. So we'll be hitting you guys with 3 episodes within 1 week as we're just playing a lot of catch up right now. Expect that here in the next couple of days. Chadley should be back for that one if he's able to make it. And then we'll probably have Matt, who you saw in one of the earlier episodes, come in as well. So we'll see how that goes. We're not going to be doing any bets today.
Nope, we're done.
Yeah, we'll bring them back on Thursday's night. It's just there's nothing going on tonight.
All right, Chadley.
No.
We appreciate you. And until next time.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right. Later.
See y'all.
All right, guys. Until next time. Peace.
Yerk.